Commissioner Hudak, can you hear us? Can you unmute so we can check your audio?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to go ahead and get started. Is Commissioner Hudak on the line?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the budget workshop for June 13th, 2023 at 6 p.m. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky, Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Preston. Here. Vice Mayor Parnes,
Here.
Mayor Gans.
Here. You'd all stand for a moment of silence and our pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good. Can we please have approval of the agenda tonight for June 13th, 2023?
So moved. Second.
Motion by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Preston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Clerk?
For those attending via Zoom online wishing to speak under public input, please click raise hand at the bottom of the participants tab and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. For those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Commission, members of the public. This evening is the first night of our budget workshops. I'd first like to take the opportunity to thank staff, Horace McHugh, our Deputy City Manager, members of Finance, our CFO, Stephanie Tinsley, Tamara Baker, our Budget Manager, and all the directors for their input on their departmental requests and their work on their presentations. This evening, over the first night, we'll go over some general budget overview slides, talk about economics, talk a little bit about the budget at a high level within the development process. I'm going to briefly go over our CIP. Back on June 2nd, the City Commission was provided with the CIP project request in a booklet that looked like this. It's over 63 projects, so to go into any length of detail with them tonight would be, frankly, keeping us here all night. So I'll go over those, and I'm happy to pause and answer any questions or go into any projects in any length of detail that the commission would like to know a little bit more about or talk more about. But I will just give a brief overview of the CIP. Tonight is mostly our administrative offices, financial services, human resources, information technology, the Office of the City Clerk, public affairs and marketing, planning and development services, economic development, and community services. Tomorrow evening, we'll be talking with the operational departments, public safety, parks and recreation, environmental services, and state management, not in that order. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and begin. I'm going to first start with Ms. Tinsley giving an overview of the budget process.
Thank you, Mr. Santucci. Good evening, commissioners. So this slide is been a standard as part of the process. It just outlines that this is really the budget development process is a year-long endeavor. It starts with reviewing, strategic priorities and plans. We also issue the budget instructions back in December to all of the departments. Through the January-March timeframe, the departments are submitting 1 month, they're submitting their CIP, another month they're submitting their personnel requests, another month they're submitting their operations. In the meantime, the city manager, myself, the deputy city manager, we're looking at the indicators and the indices, looking at what's going on at the state level, federal level, things like that in the environment and the economics that are happening along the way. So we have an idea of what type of budget we should be aiming for. Also, then following in the April-May timeframe, we begin having meetings with the departments, and in some cases, it's 2 or 3 meetings in order to understand their CIP as well as their operational and personnel requests. We go through line by line, and we really do an analysis and actually begin the refining process, as I call it, or right-sizing requests. Then in the June timeframe, we received the preliminary property assessments from the BCPA, as well as begin putting together the presentations for this meeting here for the budget workshops. And then to also get feedback and direction from you all as to how we should be proceeding with developing the final proposed budget for the city manager. And then we go through creating that budget. For the budget meeting that we have in August, we end up having the first hearing and then the second hearing in order to do the budget adoption, and that's through the August-September timeframe. Right, and then the next slide. And so one of the things that added to this is that the budget doesn't stop there with it being adopted. We also go through, of course, implementing that budget process. And so through the October, November, December timeframe, we are actually, we open up the budget in sometime in mid-October as we close out the previous year. And we are doing the monthly budget to actual analysis, and we are compiling any adjustments that are needed as we're going along in that first and second quarter of the budget cycle. We then present, if necessary, a mid-year budget amendment to the commission in order to amend the budget. And I've done that a couple of times so far since being here in order to properly budget and bring forth in a transparent way the adjustments that need to happen. When we're creating a budget, it's 6 to 9 months in advance, and so life and things happen along the way, and so then we have to make some modifications as we go along. We go through a first and second hearing in that time frame. We then implement that. We continue to do the budget monitoring through the monthly budget and actual financials that are presented to you all. And then in the July timeframe, we begin doing a closeout. We distribute instructions to the departments on closing out and preparing for closing out the fiscal year. So that last quarter, if I wasn't already a headache to the departments, I become even more so as I really kind of push and shove them along to close out their projects, the things that they have ongoing. We do our final analysis of analysis and things related to any budget adjustments that may be needed. And then in the October, November timeframe, I'm coming back to you. As per the law, I'm only allowed, or we are only allowed to do a budget amendment within 60 days after the fiscal year end for that fiscal year. And so we do our analysis. We try to make sure that we are in compliance, and we present that final budget amendment during that time frame. Okay. And so here for you all is a very summarized of the budget calendar of the upcoming things that you all will be interested in. Currently, we are in our budget workshops 1 and 2 today and tomorrow. July 1, we get our final assessments from the BCPA. And then July 18th, we have our preliminary fire rescue and nuisance abatement resolutions. And we are thinking of scheduling August 10th budget presentation for the proposed budget. And August 15th is when is the last day for submission of the budget, but we're aiming for sooner than that. And then September 5th and 13th, in keeping with compliance of the trim, is the two hearings, the first and the final hearing. Again, this is a brief budget calendar. Our working in-house calendar is upwards of 6 pages. So this is just a brief.
So I'm going to get into a little bit of the demographics, updates for the city commission and the public. First, the unemployment rate is very low right now, 2.5% for the city of Deerfield Beach, and Broward County is 2.5, the state of Florida is 2.6. So unemployment right now is very low. But it's coincidental that we still see across the market, you know, not just with the city of Deerfield Beach, but struggle to recruit and find individuals to fill positions. Our median household income is approximately $15,000 below the county average at about $49,600, which affects us, you know, in terms of our residents and their wages. Our poverty rate is higher than the Broward County average. Ours is 15.6 and the county is 12.8. Our over 65 population is higher than that of the county in the state of Florida. We have a large senior population here in Deerfield Beach, and the labor force participation rate is higher than Broward County in the state of Florida. So that's a positive. It means that we have more people in the labor pool than you know, the county average. So that is a positive thing. The fact that we have a 2.33% persons per household rate is an indication, I think, of how we have more of a senior population than most, and the persons without health insurance is staggering at 23.2%. And I think that's an indication of our poverty rate here in Deerfield Beach. Here's an indication just of the unemployment rate over time, again, currently at 2.5%. So definitely trending a lot better than it was through the past 2 years. And CPI still remains very high for the area. We just got the report today for the National Consumer Price Index at around 4% or 4.1%. But that's not what the situation looks like here in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach area. So this indice comes out every quarter. So this just came out in April, and we're still hovering very high for the region. I think it's an indication of just the affordability of South Florida in general. And the next one that will come out will be 3 months from April. Consumer confidence, we're starting to see an uptick in that. And I think that that's a reflection of the inflation coming down. And the interest rate starting to stabilize a bit. So consumer confidence is starting to creep up, obviously nowhere near before the pandemic, where it was at about 115 on the indice. But hopefully this trend will continue. Here's a slide that we showed you last year. This comes directly from the property appraiser, and this is the market sales for the month of April. Once again, the city of Deerfield Beach is within the top 5 cities with the most sales. However, you'll notice that Deerfield Beach is there all the way to the right, the circle on the right, with 149 sales in the month of April. A large majority of them were townhouses and condos. Only 16 of those were single-family homes. So we've got a lot of real estate activity going on in the city, but the vast majority of it is the townhomes and condos. You can see that the median sale price has gone up for April 2022 to 23, just slightly. 15 average sale price in Broward is now $615,000 for a single family home. The median for a townhome is $430,000. A condo is $240,000, and we're going to show you how we stack up against those numbers here in a little bit. So the assessed values here in Deerfield Beach have increased. They've gone up approximately $26,600. We're at about 11.4% change. Still behind the county average, obviously, by quite a bit, about $92,000. And so it's a larger difference than in the county average than it was last year. The good news is that we're now the 11th lowest assessed value in Broward County. We were at 10 for quite some time, so we've crept up a notch in relation to the other municipalities here in the county, and that being 31 of them. So we're now at 11. This is really where we start talking about taxable values and how that relates back to the ad valorem, because the assessed value is not what is looked at from the property appraiser in terms of assessing taxes. Last year, we took various scenarios to show you this, but this year we did it a little bit different. We wanted to use actual information that we were able to find, which is the Deerfield Beach condo average value. So the taxable value of a condo being $117,770, typical exemptions, okay? The typical homestead exemptions that you get is $50,000. The final value for a condo from a taxable standpoint is $67,770. Single family home, you can see the math there. But applying the proposed city tax rate of 6.2548, you can see what the city ad valorem taxes due are for the average condo, the average single family home, and then the Broward County average of a single family home. So it gives you some indication of how we don't collect necessarily the same amount of taxes as the average here in Broward County. It's about $600, maybe $550 less than the average, and the daily tax rate of what it costs per day for one of those. And again, it only includes the standard taxes. There are many other deductions that taxpayers may be able to get, whether that's widow, veteran, disabled, and with our senior population, many of them are able to take advantage of those additional exemptions. So again, we looked at just the city's taxes, and the city's taxes are only about a third of the overall tax burden to the individual property owner. The table on the right is the tax rates from 2022, because the tax rates for these taxing authorities don't come out until July, but they tend to stay relatively stable. So we'll probably see some adjustment for what they have in 2023, but not much. This chart wouldn't change with that new additional information. It's typical that when the tax bill comes out, the first person that a property owner calls is the city, assuming that the city is collecting all those taxes. We do not collect all those taxes. The Broward County Property Appraiser collects all those taxes on behalf of all these taxing authorities, and the city receives about 30%. I think it's important to look at our millage rate history and the success that we've had in slowly reducing it over time. The proposed millage rate today is 6.2548, slightly lower than last year, and on that continuing trend with the operating millage of 6.0018, no change there. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Stephanie. We'll talk a little bit more about the ad valorem and general fund.
Thank you. Thank you. So the ad valorem tax revenue collection or projection based on the BCPA's June 1st numbers that they sent out to us is approximately $59 million. And I'll go into a little more detail with that. That includes a 95% collection rate. And 2023 is the estimate that we have as budgeted at $53.2 million. As you see, it's a slight tick up from prior year. And so this is the full calculation. It's at 61.6 million. The CRA share is 2.6 million and leaving us at the 59 million. 1 mil now generates $9.8 million of ad valorem tax. The overall tax increase of the taxable property value is 10.21%. increase in taxable value. And this is, again, an estimate at the 95% collection rate as per the trim law. Right. So this slide is so far the revenue estimates that we have across all funds based on these set of categories to the left. And so the first five or six is the basic operating revenue streams that we see. So the property tax, that would include also the CRA, as well as an estimate of the delinquency tax that we're going to receive. So I have an estimate in there as well. So that's why you see it at almost $60.1 million, and with that increased change. Then there's the sales tax. There's a slight increase we're projecting for that. The fire assessment fee, the increase is currently we're budgeting at 309 or 310. I will know that the current rate is 295, but I did put that in there. It's consistent with the percent increase for fire at this time. So just putting that in there. The franchise fees, we've also seen some trending up on that. And so currently the projection is 200,000 more than last year's budget. And same thing with the local option gas tax and charges for services. The charges for services, as large as it is, again, this is a combination of all funds. So the charges for services not only includes the general fund, which primarily is Parks and Recs and public safety, but it's also the enterprise funds. So our solid waste, water, sewer, stormwater. The remaining amounts, intergovernmental grants is about the same. That would include estimates of ARPA funding that's going to be carried forward, as well as CDBG, home, and SHIP. That would be in there as well. Administrative fees, which is the fees that we charge our enterprise funds back to the general fund, we're remaining that as stable. And of course, the interfund transfers in or dollars that are moving between funds in order to fund the projects and or the debt service. So for example, the property tax in that line item includes the voted debt portion, millage. We collect that in the general fund and it gets transferred over to the debt service fund, our new debt service fund that we just did last year. It transfers over to that fund. So that's what an interfund transfer is, as well as capital. And then the loan proceeds are our current bond projects, as well as anticipated debt that we are going to be taking out and or recommending. And then the use of fund balance is pretty much to be determined as we continue to process the budget and take into consideration your direction. And other financing sources will include things like interest earnings. And so there is an increase there. We are seeing significant improvements in our interest earnings, but it also includes other types of things that don't fit into those other categories. And so, so just looking at our operating general fund sources, one of the things that is important to note here, while the slide is created, is that for the general fund, the largest source of funds is our property tax. It takes up, it provides almost 50% of the revenue or funding sources to support the general fund operations. And the next closest is our fire assessment, and the rest makes up the balance.
Thank you, Stephanie. This year, we're going to just go over a little bit in every department's budget presentation. They're going to review with you their recent achievements, their current initiatives, and then their future considerations. And I think that's important for us to do on a citywide level as well. So we can talk about what the things as the city as a whole and my office, myself, have been focused on and working on. So obviously, from an executive recruitment perspective, I'm happy to report that we'll have a new human resources director on board on June 26th. We've hired from within both the director of community services and the assistant director for community services. We've hired from within our city clerk. We have a new assistant city clerk on board who's come to us from just across the state. We've also hired a new assistant director who has a vast amount of experience here locally, and proud to have him on board too as well. The paying class study completion, the analysis and the implementation, our ability to do that without an effect on the budget for FY23 was, I think, a great achievement for the city. You know, we've seen a better recruitment lately, just in terms of some of the hiring practices and the individuals who I've been able to meet with when I do my new hire meet and greets. Just very encouraged by the talent that we're bringing in, and some of the retainage that we've seen and the improvements there. And really, I think this kind of just speaks to, from my perspective and my point of view, just a better employee satisfaction and morale that we're experiencing with the workforce. You know, we've really been intentional about master plans for our enterprise funds so that we have a roadmap and a plan in place to improve our infrastructure, and it's time to do that within our utilities, within our stormwater, within our solid waste. And the ability to bring that forward to the city commission and with a funding strategy and move that forward has allowed us to push a lot of these projects in the master plan forward. Many of them are in design and construction phases. So I'm very encouraged about that and our ability to meet a lot of the demands, whether it is service demands or regulatory demands or audit demands. This is, I think, a good story for the city to tell. You know, we're looking at also long-term financial planning for our operational and infrastructure needs, you know, just as I said, but it goes beyond that. It's really about looking at what we need as a city in order to not only, you know, build out the infrastructure that's underground, but above ground as well. And so we're looking at various ways in which we can do that, and I'll speak to that in a minute. The referendum, the sale of 1045 Southwest 11th Way, obviously, I think a monumental moment for this city in these times. There are municipalities around us who have attempted the sale of property through referendum recently and have failed. You know, this city and its citizens supported this project, and we got, in my opinion, you know, we're under contract for a very good deal here for the city with a project that will be very exciting here for the city of Deerfield Beach at a gateway into our community. 10th Street coordination and FDOT, you know, we've been able to really, I got to give the city commission a great deal of credit for this one, with their work with FDOT, making sure that this project does not turn into something that would divide and destroy this city. You know, not only from the way in which the road is designed and its program, what's going to be actually on the road in terms of vehicles and trucks, but how it looks and how they've engaged our communities to ensure that our communities had a say in what this project would be, really is, I think, something that FDOT was not used to, excuse me, but that is the Deerfield Beach way to engage the community. We also were able to acquire an additional vacant beach lot near the Boca border. So just one more beach parcel that we are able to have for public enjoyment for years to come. And we have been addressing the reoccurring audit observations and findings. And on June 20th, you'll get the presentation of the CAFR. We have no findings, no repeat findings. And with the Auditor General, they had, you know, some great recommendations on the way in which the city can improve, how we can be more transparent, how we can be more efficient. We've been addressing a lot of those concerns. We continue to do that. We know that at one point in time, they'll come back and want to see our progress, and we are planning for that. Our current initiatives, we, within my office, have taken the lead role in the coordination and the implementation of the ERP. I'm happy to say that we are working within the timeline and our milestones of completion. This is a multi-year project, but it is moving along nicely. And we'll be coming before the city commission with a final contract here in the coming, probably by the end of the summer, no later. We continue with the 1045 Southwest 11th Way project. We're working on the developers agreement right now. We are working with them on their site plan and city entitlements. That is something that we are continuing to do. We meet with them on a regular basis. So we're formulating that professional relationship to ensure that we follow through on what the citizens of Deerfield Beach voted for. We have been working very diligently on a citywide strategic plan. It has taken admittedly a lot longer than I would like, but I've gotten a lot of good input from city staff and our directors in terms of the final draft that we received. We're making revisions to that and designing the actual document as we speak, and I'm really excited about presenting that to the city commission. We're also looking and just in the beginning developmental stage, visioning, if you will, of Central City redevelopment. And you were, in addition to that, you were recently presented with a plan on what that Central City redevelopment looks like and what actions are going to be taken by the city in order to make that vision a reality. And you'll see in some of the presentations coming up, dollars going towards that in order to move that forward finally. We continue with our ARPA project, the execution and the funding administration. We're doing very well there. A lot of our projects are in the construction phase. The percent of spend looks really good right now. I have no doubt that we will meet the expenditure requirements and the encumbrance requirements of ARP and spend that before those deadlines. And then another initiative that we have, and this really relates to the recruitment and retention, our ability to keep people. In this budget, we're looking to make some organizational chart presentation changes to provide a bit more agility in the way that we recruit and that we retain our employees. And the best way for me to explain that is by an example. So let's imagine we have more than 3 mechanics, but let's just imagine we have 3 mechanics, and one's a mechanic 1, one's a mechanic 2, and one's a mechanic 3. Okay. If we need to hire a mechanic 3, sometimes we don't have people who are applying who qualify as a mechanic 3, but they may qualify as a mechanic 1. But because we only have that mechanic 3 position, I can't hire them as a mechanic 1. Okay, that's one example. Example 2 is, let's say I have a mechanic 1 who comes in, they've finally got the skills, the certifications, the qualifications, and the experience to move to a mechanic 2 position, but I don't have a position for them as a mechanic 2. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to leave the organization and go on to another organization where they can get higher pay. What we're attempting to do here is just say 3 mechanics, regardless of whether or not they're 1s, 2s, or 3s. And this will allow us to develop our in-house employees and allow them to climb a ladder if there's, if we have a space or a position available, or to have flexibility in the hiring process to ensure that we can actually fill these positions. So that's something we're looking to do in this year's budget. Future considerations, looking at the global economy and the climate, the whispers of recession seem to be receding just a little bit, but you still see, when you see inflation going down, you see CIP stabilizing, the housing market is cooling off. It's still a concern that we need to look at. Here in Florida, we do know that our costs are still very high. So I think we'll have a different experience if a recession hits. I think for Florida, as of right now, it could potentially be very mild. But I certainly don't see anything of the likes that we saw during the last recession. Again, we talked about a redevelopment of the downtown area and looking at a multi-use downtown campus. When we talked about Pioneer Grove years ago and what that could be, I truly believe that we need to put our best foot forward in order to make that vision a reality. And we've started that with various infrastructure projects. You look at the design of Northeast 2nd Ave, and what we want to do there in terms of the roadway improvements, the utility infrastructure, all of that's going to be needed to support this development. And we've started down that path, but now we need to look at the vertical infrastructure and how we are going to entice the type of development that Pioneer Grove is looking for. always talking about public safety service levels and costs around this time of year during budget. And that's something that we're probably going to really have a good understanding of as we complete the public safety master plan. And then the conversation is really going to turn to, well, if we don't have the adequate resources, how are we going to afford to do so? So looking at various things like our fire rescue recapture rates is going to be important, you know, looking at potentially our EMS transport fees or what other revenue sources we can bring in to support this to ensure that we try to maintain a lower tax burden in terms of millage, or not transfer that millage burden onto public safety, which would only take away from things like parks and recreation. So that kind of all, not that, but talking about the multi-use downtown campus and just looking at the redevelopment opportunities that are coming before the city. We had sort of a renaissance with the industrial and the warehousing. Now we're seeing it really in residential, and I don't think that's any surprise with the demand that residential has here in South Florida. But how we look at those developments and what we want to bring into the city is a very important thing to consider, and understanding the community needs and what they are willing to see and what they are willing not to see. But then that also turns the conversation to attainable housing opportunities, because we know that attainable housing opportunities, as we had a presentation a few months ago, are a real issue in South Florida. And now that we have the Live Local Act, this may turn into a situation where we see attainable housing in areas that we would not have seen before, in our commercial and our industrial areas. And in that case, the city commission may not have a lot of say in what that attainable housing looks like, how dense it is. It's obviously a brand new law that isn't even in effect yet. It will be on July 1st. But these are things that we have to consider in terms of our need for attainable housing, but also what attainable housing could be coming into the city. Always looking at legislative mandates and the impacts and the funding that it can have. We continue to press the legislature on various things that impact the community, like Airbnbs or what do we call them? Short-term rentals, excuse me. And then looking at, for internally at ourselves, evolving workplace and workforce. We've done some things to address that as the workplace and the landscape has changed. Telecommuting policies and looking at non-permanent staffing, whether they're temporary, retired, or, you know, those types of things. But looking more at non-traditional work days and work environment, I think is something that's going to catch up to the public sector, because it's already happening in the private sector. And these are things that we're looking at internally so that we can understand how we need to pivot and or shift or adapt to what the labor market is going to demand of us. We're also looking at, with all that said, you know, the long-term investment strategies for us, for the infrastructure that we need to support smart economic development, quality of life enhancements, and things like the central downtown area. How we look at those things, are we positioning ourselves financially for that in the future so that we can have the capital and that we need in order to fund those types of projects? And I will turn it over to Stephanie to talk a little bit more about how we are positioned.
Thank you, Dave. All right, so now we get to the fun stuff. So this is about the general fund balance and a peer comparative that was done in conjunction working with financial consultants. And so just a very high level, and there's a lot on the slide, but I'll just kind of talk you through it. So on the left side is total general fund balance. That means unassigned, restricted, committed, assigned, your entire general fund balance. What is that true bottom line? That's a comparison of total general fund balance on the left side. And so up in the upper left corner, the gold burnt orange is the amount for the city of Deerfield Beach. The lighter green is at the national level. And each one of those bars, starting at the top, is the AA rate or AAA rated national at a national level, AA in the center, and then rated A national level. And then the darker green is the Florida localities that we were compared against. And so again, the top green bar is the AAA rated Florida localities, then the AA, and then the A rated localities. And so in comparison, as you just look at it just from without looking at the numbers, we are in better shape than the national level at the AAA. So we stand out better than them. And we are pretty much in line with our Florida localities that are at the AA rating. Not too far off from the AAA rated localities, and certainly well above the AA. So we are at a total general fund balance. We sit at a good solid AA rating. And so if we move to the right, out of the total general fund balance comparison, if you just take assigned fund balance, meaning not the restricted, not the committed, not the assigned, the true unassigned, what we would call, as you have referred to, the reserves, what does that look like in comparison to the national level reserves and at the Florida localities that are similar to us? And so again, when you look at that chart, we are well above at a national level, well above the AAA group. When we go down to the Florida group, we are really sitting at a AAA level. So our unassigned fund balance, if we were to be rated, and that's just one of multitude of factors, we sit pretty solid at a AAA rated for the other localities in Florida. If we go down to the next set of areas there, the total general fund, back over to the left, total general fund balance as a percent of revenue. So this is comparing how our fund balance in comparison to our revenues. And so again, the city of Deerfield Beach, that burnt orange is at the top, and compared to the others, we are a little bit lower than the national AA rating, but we are pretty much in line with the Florida AAA localities. So we have a good standing there with our total general fund balance as a percent of our overall revenues. And then when we look at the unassigned fund balance, our level of unassigned fund balance, we are well above the AAA for the Florida median group. And so we are really at a good place fund balance wise for looking forward into the future. So we've done a lot of things to strengthen our financial management position here. And so if we move on to the existing tax supported debt, and so when we talk about investing in our capital projects, and some of that will involve taking out debt in the future. So we want to look at how do we stack up on our existing supporting debt. So the total amount of debt that we have out is 56.7 million in those two types of debt, the general obligations at 10.7, and then the covenant bonds at 46 million. And so there are three types of measures or matrices that we look at to analyze our current debt. And so the 10-year payout ratio, we are at 50.2%. The debt to assessed value, we're at a very low 0.54%. And then debt service to expenditures, we're at a 5.97%. And in the next slide, I'll just go over that a little bit and where we stack up against the national and with our other local Florida localities. So the 10-year payout ratio, which is a measure of in 10 years, how much of your current debt will be paid off. So we are at 50% of our current debt will be paid off, our principal. And so in comparison, we're a little bit lower than the national average, but we're about at the AA rated for Florida. And so we're at a good solid AA there. If we look at the debt to assessed value, and again, that percent, I should indicate, of course, the higher, the better is the percentage. So our percent has actually been going up. It was not too long ago, it was 48 point something, so now it's 50%. Debt to assessed value. So we are at a 0.54%. And as we look at how Deerfield Beach stacks up against our just our local our neighbors, we are at between a AA and a AAA rating at the local level. And again, 0.54 is a very low percentage. The standard among the bond ratings is 3%, is very good. Anything between 3 and 10%, you're kind of neutral. Get at 10%, you're going to get dinged for that. So we're at a very, very good spot there. And then as debt service to expenditure, again, we're just under 6%. That 6% in comparison to a AA, AAA, we are at a good solid AA rating there. And so again, anything lower than 8%, which is the standard, it's a very, very strong. We are in good place for that. 8 to 15%, we're just strong. And then anything above 15% is considered adequate. So we are really in a very, very good place as we begin to have that discussion about debt and coming up soon. Just wanted to kind of give you an overview of that and an understanding that we are in good shape for our investment, our reserves, and our current debt structure.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's the conclusion of that portion of the presentation. I'll see if there's any questions from the commission.
Thank you. So looking just big picture for the budget for the upcoming year, the millage rate this year is 6.2826. The proposed is 6.2548 for a reduction of 0.0278, which seems to be a small amount. So if I look at the revenues in the presentation, just the ad valorem went from 53.2 million to a projected 59.0 million, which is an increase of revenue of 5.8 million. When I eyeballed the other revenues on page 17, there was probably at least 3-4 million other increases in revenues on those slides. So roughly, just very quickly, because I only got this presentation as I sat down tonight, roughly there's about 1 mil worth of increased revenues, and 1 mil equals 9.8 million. Yet we're only decreasing the millage rate by the 0.028, which I assume the decrease is because of the debt service going down. So where is this extra 9.8 roughly million? What, as we go through the rest of the budget, where's the additional increased expenses that are going to eat up that increase in revenues? That's question one.
Sure. So, we talked about the high inflationary environment that we're in here in South Florida. And although the national average is down to 4%, hovering around 9% here locally is not only the cost of living, but it's the cost of doing business. And as we go through these slides, you're going to see a lot of the increases that we've seen in our services, in our maintenance and repair costs. For example, just look at what we just experienced with our landscape services and our janitorial services. Between those two contracts, I think we're probably around 800,000, 900,000 increase in just 1 year alone. We're going to be seeing approximately a 4.6% increase on our fire rescue costs, and I think a 6.2% increase on our law enforcement costs. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So we are absorbing cost increases that are generally outside of our control. Departments have done a pretty good job of cutting corners, and you're going to see some decreases in some areas. But we're really just keeping up with the business environment with the increases that we're seeing in the ad valorem, which is, 50% of what we bring in for the general fund, not the entire amount.
So what are the big ticket items as we go through the rest of these slides that I should be looking for and the increases going forward? You mentioned the services contracts, police and fire. What are the other big ticket items?
So, I mean, each department is going to highlight major increases and decreases. So if I may, just as we go through the presentations, you will see those indications. And also the capital as well, which, again, I don't think you were here for this portion, but I'm going to briefly just highlight the capital within each fund. We did provide the CIP project requests on June 2nd. I wanted to make sure that each CIP request was in this presentation because this will be published for the public to review, and I want the public to be able to, digest it even further. I'd like to give a summary, and you're going to see some of the costs associated with the capital projects that we're looking to fund for this fiscal year. So between, capital improvements and operational cost increases, the increases you're seeing in revenue will certainly be absorbed.
And how are we looking like for future years beyond this? Because we have to look long term. If the inflation is eating up the revenue increases for this year, 23, 24, what are we looking at 24, 25 and beyond? Because the increases in the ad valorem are probably not sustainable over the long term. So inflation is going to catch up or overtake those increases at some point. So what's the long-term projections?
So right now, what we're seeing is a cooling period, especially with inflation. As I mentioned, nationally, it's gone down. It's the lowest it's been in over 2 years. Our region is probably going to take a little bit longer to cool off, but the housing market remains pretty stable. It is cooling off as well, so we're not seeing the increases, but as I presented in one of those slides, even from a year ago, April, there was about a $15,000 increase in the average sale value of a single family home. So we expect that we won't see the same amount of increases in the ad valorem, but likewise, we won't see the same amount of inflation on the, again, the products, the services, and the necessary things that we need to run and service our citizens. So that's pretty much the expectation moving forward over the next couple of years is a pretty stable continuation, but a cooling off period. I don't know if you have anything additional to add to that.
So if over time, probably another year of increase in assessed value, and then that kind of slowing down and cooling off of the assessed values of people's homes and condos and things like that. We're not really seeing that that's going to continue to skyrocket, and that suddenly something that was worth 100,000 is now going to be worth 500,000. I'm not going to think we'll see that. So that will bring some relief to the taxpayer in that sense as well.
Okay. I mean, obviously, if you collectively see differences in these trends, let the commission know, because we run a pretty tight ship, and any deviation will alter, our strategy going forward. My last question or comment is, and I'm a little concerned in the future considerations that I didn't see anything for districts 3 or 4 in there, and the removal, I didn't see anything for 4 corners going forward. Was that intentional, or is that in later slides.
Yeah, we definitely have things planned for districts for the western portion of the city. I'll show you a major capital project that I think we need to turn our attention to. During the planning and development services presentation, you'll see some additional efforts to move forward with the Four Corners project. So there's some things in there for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the summary pages for the CIP requests. I'll just talk briefly about them and show you the numbers in terms of what they are. I'm happy to go into additional detail should the city commission want to review a project a little bit more deeper, and I have staff here who can explain those capital requests as well. So with the first one in the general fund, we have a capital request. It is just a request at this point of approximately $12 million. It includes improvements within our parks that what is called an air pavilion over the basketball courts at Oviedo. It provides additional coverage, to provide shade in the hot summer months. We've seen these being popped up in other communities, and it's been very successful. There's a proposal to do some renovations to the Central City campus second floor. We've really run out of space for employees there. I mean, we literally have folks setting up shop at the end of hallways. So looking at how we can expand the existing footprint of that facility to provide more office space is something that has come in as a request. Continuation of our unified key management system. This is a continuation of a project that was approved in this current year's fiscal project. More court resurfacing and enclosures. Looking at our fitness courts, and fitness courts means the fitness equipment, the outdoor fitness equipment, park lighting improvements, continuation of pavilions, playgrounds. All of that is included in the CIP. Pointing out some of the bigger ones in the general fund, we'd like to put dollars towards addressing what will, after Tigner Center is done, the next center of greatest need, which would be the Constitution Park Community Center. Obviously, $1 million doesn't get it done. Quite frankly, I don't think 5.3 gets it done. But we'd like to start setting aside dollars to start doing the design and the conceptuals on that community center. Continuation of the FEC fence, Southeast 10th Street to Sample Road. We'd like to further explore electric charging pilot program as electric vehicles become more prevalent. Additionally, let's talk a little bit about the International Fishing Pier. Luckily last year we had budgeted for a full-blown structural assessment of the pier, and her tropical storm or Hurricane Nicole, whatever it was, really kind of forced our hand of when exactly that was going to happen. So the structural assessment's done, in the initial range, and it's a wide range, is between $2.5 to $4.5 million to remediate the pier and everything that's needed to be done. But this presents us with an opportunity to look at the pier in the way that which it functions, the way in which it's programmed, the way in which it looks. And if we're going to do any of those things in terms of changing the programming, the function, or the aesthetics, now would be the time to do it. So currently our consultants are looking at different things that we can do on the pier to do those enhancements. And so what I want to be able to do is come back to the city commission and basically say, now this is what it's going to cost to, fix it in its current, the way it looks today. And here are some additional things that we might be able to do to the pier if the commission so desires to do that. And I want to bring those options before you. So that's what we're looking at right now. We're putting a capital budget forth for the city commission, and we'll be back at a later date to have that discussion. Lifeguard tower continuation. This year we're doing 1 through 4 and 9. Next year we'll be able to complete that. And then a continuation of the West Community Center building on June 20th. An item will be coming before you for a change order on that project, and we'll discuss at that time if it's okay to, we'll make sure that the city commission gets an update on that project. Are there any other questions related to the general capital fund that I could address, any specific project?
The citywide park lighting,
Mhm.
can you be a little bit more specific about, the way that I'm reading it here is very general. Can you tell me something specific about that?
Thank you, Commissioner. The locations that have been identified over the next 3 years, and a lot of that is, we're not sure exactly what the cost will be because we plan to work with FPL on an opportunity to get some additional discounts for energy efficiency. But the three parks that we have identified are Mayo Howard, Villages of Hillsborough, and parking lot lighting, particularly at Constitution.
Okay, so we're looking at, Obeda and, Constitution, is what you said? Constitution,
We're looking at Mayo, Villages of Hillsborough, and Constitution.
okay. You know, I think what would be, appropriate for consideration is to have 24-hour lighting in all of our parks. The reason being is that, a dusk to dawn, type of, consideration. Because, I think that would discourage, any potential, challenges that we might have as far as nefarious activity going on in those parks. So, I like the idea that we are addressing citywide parking, park lighting, but I think it ought to be that citywide, every park ought to have 24-hour, lighting to it.
I would like to see a comparison when you do lighting in our parks. Right now in this particular location, I understand we have solar lighting on the lampposts. I'd like to see a comparison for lighting in our parks to be solar.
Yes, Commissioner, that's actually what we're talking about and what are our options. We do have that comparable for Mayo Howard. The technology is almost there. When those original solar lights were put in 5, 7, 10 years ago, the technology wasn't as good as it is now. So yeah, that evaluation, the evaluation of leasing parking lot lights at a set rate, that are everything will be LED, so we have that savings there. So
I
yes,
just
all of
think
that.
in the long run, it'll save us a great deal of money if we have solar lights. FP&L is rich enough.
I trust you on negotiating that.
Commissioner Hudak, go ahead.
Thank you. With regards to Commissioner Preston's comment on 24-hour lighting, right now, that's really not a viable option in a lot of our parks because that lighting intrudes on the homes. We've had a lot of complaints over by the Aquatic Center where the lights were mistakenly left on, and it adversely affects the homes that surround those parks. So I understand the concept with regards to safety, but with regards to the homes that live around those parks, 24-hour lighting is really not a viable option at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner, I appreciate your comments. But maybe there can be a compromise in terms of how those lights are illuminated. Because I've heard from different people in different districts, when the lighting goes down, it tends to attract people to come there at our facilities. And it just, even if they are not doing anything that's not good, it's just the fact that they're there, and it makes a lot of people nervous, especially our elderly. They look at that. So on one hand, when you're saying that the lighting can be, disturb people, I certainly see how that could happen. But I'm quite sure that, we could work out a compromise or something wherein we could achieve both of those objectives simultaneously.
And really what I think we need to do is be intentional and make sure that we don't have spillage out into residencies. And so we'll make sure we're addressing those things. So this is a summary of the vehicle request within the general fund, various light duty and heavy duty vehicles at a total of 1.6 million, 1.68. Within the road and bridge fund, what we're attempting to do here with the 700,000 is to build the funding for the design of Southeast 15th Avenue there in the Cove. As you know, we're addressing 13th right now, and this is to move forward with 15th and to address that bridge. Citywide street lighting is funded at 800,000. That is a surtax project. We also have Dixie Highway streetscape improvements, which is connected to the FDOT RRR project that they will be doing. And so this would be the city's portion of the improvements outside of what FDOT is doing, an opportunity to get those improvements funded. So we're talking things like wider sidewalks, better lighting, crosswalks, those sorts of features that FDOT traditionally doesn't fund. We have FAU Research Boulevard, surtax funded project, as well as, but we also have a Pioneer Grove corridor. The LAP project that we have here at various locations, these are smaller improvements along roadways that we're looking to do. So LAP is, through the MTech at MPO, so they'll be managing that project. And then we have a Safe Routes to School project with Deerfield Elementary, also a LAP sidewalk project as well. Any questions on Road and Bridge?
Yes. Now, the Dixie Highway streetscape improvements, and that's connected to FDOT, is that correct?
Correct.
So that's what I'm seeing now with those medians that have not been developed. I mean, they're just sitting there.
Right. So it's an opportunity for us to be bringing in irrigation on the medians. It's an opportunity for us to do sidewalk improvements, crosswalk improvements, lighting improvements. Correct.
When is that project scheduled to begin?
The funding is due from the city in 24, and I believe that they'll start that project in 25 or 26.
So just to be clear, so the medians like it is, it's just basically dirt. Now, I understand that we can put irrigation in there. So for 2 years, it's going to be just dirt?
Yeah, they can.
I think I snuck that one in on the Commissioner and Priscilla. So on Dixie and Powerline both, we're going ahead and doing the irrigation, the main line irrigation, and at least replacing the sod, because both of those looked really poor on the south end of Powerline and on the Dixie section that you see. So we're midstream on that. I suspect we'll be done probably in another 6 weeks. We've also got the Cove going out at the same time, and sod farms go under water a lot this time of year.
So I don't, it's not going to just remain as it,
It's not going to remain like you're seeing it today,
Okay.
which is dirt and
Right.
it actually isn't even graded for sod yet. We could go ahead and do that, make it look a little better.
okay,
And then it'll be
okay,
irrigation sod
okay,
and then the actual beautification
okay,
project.
okay, thank you.
Silly question. Are we looking to rename FAU Research Park Boulevard?
There are no plans at this moment to do that. I don't think you're the only commissioner who has talked about that in the past. Bear in mind that we do still have FAU research development on that road. And basically, whenever you do rename a road, you do affect every business on that road with the renaming, with costs that they incur for whatever it is that they need to change from a marketing perspective, from a, whatever it is that they have literature on with that name. So it's easy for us to change it, but it does have an effect.
We're just gonna
The
take.
sore spot.
Wow.
Moving on to the utility capital fund, some notable projects in here include the advanced metering infrastructure. The latest update I got is that we will see the supplies needed to begin that project come in by September. And so probably within the fall, winter time, that project will be underway. That is mostly an American Rescue Plan funded project. The ammonia conversion and the chlorine conversion is a continuation. Those are enhancements and safety improvements that we'll see at the water plant. We're doing the rehabilitation of the Floridian well. That is the well that we use for our nano filtration and injection back into that. We also have a lot of updates on controls. So the PLCs, the central motor control, and the operator's control console. All of that, you can imagine the age of that that treatment center and the original consoles that were put in place. It's the equivalent of NASA upgrading all of their spaceships over the years, but leaving all the old infrastructure in. So we just have a plethora of old equipment that's outdated and needs to be updated, so that we can appropriately troubleshoot when we do see issues with that. So major upgrades there from an electronic standpoint. Also, the Southwest 10th Street reclaimed water line is in the budget for FY24. And a number of various improvements that are consistent with the master plan. I'm going to take silence as moving on and go to solid waste. Looking to purchase 3 front loader trucks. I saw one limping in yesterday on a tow truck. So we definitely have some needs in capital and solid waste. The total vehicle and equipment request from solid waste is $2 million. We'll go into their budget tomorrow and we'll talk about the overall budget and how that fits into their existing revenues and expenditures. And they're looking pretty solid there. Actually going to have we're turning that fund around even with these expenditures, which is exciting. As you know, we're looking to reverse the negative fund balance on that, and we are doing so. Within stormwater, we talked about these projects at length in many of our meetings, but dollars going towards, the $400,000 is really just the little projects that we have to do throughout the year. Sometimes, and they're unanticipated, but also looking at College Park, Crystal Lake Drive, Southeast 8th Ave, West Deerfield, which would be our Deer Creek area, and Martin Luther King Jr. stormwater improvements, all coming to fruition, whether in construction or design. So very excited to see these projects moving forward. Any questions on stormwater?
Yes. When we're looking at the Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue stormwater improvement, is that in the design phase or actually is that it's being implemented?
No, that 400,000 is our design.
That's the design?
Correct. And
Okay.
it takes approximately 1 year to design a stormwater project between the permitting process, getting our surface water licenses in place. So we'll need this fiscal year 24 to do the design. And then at the same time, we're concurrently applying for grants to see if we can get some contribution towards the construction, which would be anticipated for fiscal year 25.
I'm glad it is being addressed. but there's no way to expedite that process. Is that just what it is?
That's traditionally what it takes is 1 year for design, just because of the
And then
duration with permitting.
and then the implementation begins after that?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two questions. The first one is, when are we going to start construction on Southeast 8th Avenue Stormwater? And the second one, if you can go back to the previous slide, we had the front loader trucks. I thought we just purchased a used front loader truck for $500,000. So how are we going to purchase 3 of them for 1.4 million?
You answer yours first.
Yes, so the Southeast 8th Avenue project, we've just completed the design. We're actually still pending the surface water license through Broward County. We anticipate that frankly any day. We've been through a couple of iterations now with Broward County on that permit. So as soon as our surface water license is approved, we will then put that on the street for advertisement. Traditionally, we put things out on the street 30 days, and then an award will come before the commission after that for the construction. Construction, I would anticipate to be between 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
And to answer your other question, Commissioner, that front loader that we purchased was $250,000 and was a used vehicle that we're able to get out of Georgia. So these are based off of quotes that we receive from the vendors for what the prices will be next year.
I see. I obviously I thought the cost was a lot more than 250. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that concludes the capital improvement request portion of the meeting. I'll bring back now Stephanie Tinsley, and we'll start going through the department level requests.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, so financial services recent achievements. We have received the FY20, well, as you know, FY 2021 Certificate of Achievement for financial reporting. The year over year, we continue to do well with that and be responsive to the improvements and feedback that we get from the evaluators through that process. And we continue to make improvements in our reporting annually on that. And then FY 2022 clean audit opinion with no findings. I will be presenting the 2022 ACFR Annual Comprehensive Financial Report on June 20th. So we'll talk more about that then. And then FY 2023 Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, again, win it year over year over year. It is a rigorous review process, and we each year do something to improve our budget presentation process and improve the transparency of our document going forward. Other achievements that we've had is the pay and compensation strategy implementation. Of course, we've talked about that a number of meetings and times, and we are now actively working to implement it to our employees. And so the first phase of it actually was implemented with this past pay. And we're working on the next phase, and we have next phase and probably a phase after that to fully implement and have it paid out to the employees as approved. Also, during FY 2023, we finalized the reallocation of all the non-departmental and central service items that were in prior budgets, FY 2021. Again, the goal is to be fully transparent. There were a number of things that were in both those classifications that really could be more properly classified and more transparent and put in the right areas so that it can be fully seen and visible. And then finally, the recent achievement is customer service enhancements in our in our lobby and on our website. And so we implemented iLobby and some other improvements there. Our current initiatives involve the upgrades to the billing and collections for BSO, the fire safety inspection, from our old antiquated and non-supported software that gives IT a huge headache to GovEasy. And that's a partnership with planning and Eric's team. Also, we continue to work on improving the City Hall customer service security enhancements in the lobby area on the first floor. Again, in partnership with my neighbor, Eric, in the planning area. Those are the two main, and also public affairs and marketing. Those are the three main departments on that first floor. And then the cost allocation plan, we are in the study phase of that. And so there's been we continue to do work on the cost allocation plan. One of the big areas that we've spent a significant amount of time on, and it relates to the ERP, is the OpenGov budget development software design and configuration. With that, one of the huge pieces that also will impact the ERP is the redesign and redevelopment of our chart of accounts. The GFOA, our consultant, indicated that he never seen Deerfield Beach is one of the first or the only locality that has over 3,000 expenditure accounts. And that is unheard of. And even for a county or a super large locality, it just signified that I guess whoever was in place at the time that created the chart of accounts probably wasn't sure how to do so. So we have worked diligently to streamline that, and we have a new chart of accounts available, and we are implementing it with the OpenGov software, exercising it. We've and I'm just talking about even just expenditures. I haven't gone with anything about revenues or the assets or liabilities or things like that. And we've reduced our expenditure accounts from 3,000 to 300. And so again, when we do something like that, we have to talk about data conversion and crosswalks and things like that. And so OpenGov gives us an opportunity to exercise that and work out the kinks and have it ready for when we actually do the implementation for our new ERP system. That is one of the first things that's on the list to provide as part of the implementation for the ERP.
Thank you, Mayor. Tell me about the City Hall customer service. I'm not so concerned so much about the security enhancements as much as I am about customer service, because I get complaints about customer service, people coming in to just take care of normal city business. And if I may interrupt you, can you do that in a different time? This is about financial enhancements as opposed to, or excuse me, about security enhancements as opposed to the actual customer service that goes on there. Is that okay? It's okay. It's okay. They had customer service there, so yeah, it's about security enhancements rather than the actual customer service itself. Okay, so where would we address that? Probably maybe you guys should have just put up security enhancement, because when you say customer service, that's a really broad topic, and I think that just it puts it out there to talk about customer service, not just the security.
What that's related to directly is really just kind of the changed landscape of the way that people treat each other. And our frontline employees within City Hall really have some concerns about how open it is. And we're looking at addressing that so that our employees can feel a little bit more secure than what they do today.
Yeah, we'll talk about one. Yeah.
And okay, sure. And I'll be happy to chat with you even.
Okay,
after.
sure.
All right. And then we have a number of GASBs, as we call them, Governmental Accounting Standard Board, standards that, we are working on, reviewing and, determining, what we need to do to implement. One in particular, GASB 96, we are coordinating with IT on that, in order to, implement that in time. And some of these have been delayed 12 to 18 months due to, the pandemic. GASB put a delay out on some of those. And so, and then of course, the ERP, we just talked about that. We're doing the preparation and data cleanup of, and the process improvements related to that. And then, I will be bringing forth to you some updated financial policies, again, kind of related to debt management, investment, fund balance, things like that. So that's why I'm introducing that right now. And then, of course, Dave already talked about the AG audit, and that we continue to, address those findings. All right, and in future consideration, again, the AG, Dave already, addressed that. The implementation of the cost allocation plan, when that is final, and then additional GASBs, that are coming down the pipeline. And so, that is always ongoing, with the new stuff that comes up. And then, of course, the system implementations, the ERP, OpenGov, and the automated meter reading, just as we discussed, that will have an impact on our, my financial team as we have to do, parallel testing and processing in that way. So, this is the overall, financial services operating budget with the different, divisions, and we'll go over each one individually. So the accounting and treasury management team, or, budget. So some of those changes as we discussed. So a lot of the deals with, personnel. So there was a, budget transfer during FY 23, from personnel to operating. And so that's what kind of makes that change, 319,000 seem a little bit, high. It's the transfer in FY 23 that made that personnel line lower. We also added in a new intern. Again, just trying to do something different. You'll see that across all the three divisions, the main division. Try to figure if we can try to, influence, high school and some of the younger college folks to come to work for the government. Maybe, we can, create our own employee, linear data, to come and come to us and work with us for full time. So, that's a goal. And then, of course, we've had some with the GovEasy, with the, business license tax and fire inspection, the annual increase of 20,000. Audit service to help us with GASB, 12,000. Temporary service, for ERP implementation, 50,000, and bank charges for in-person payments at 55,000. Those are the charges that we cannot pass on to, the customer. Budget and performance, similar, budget transfer during FY 23 to bring in temp services as we try to recruit for the vacant position. Again, there's that budget intern, we're trying to bring in, to, attract in a different way. And then, reduction of one-time professional services for the implementation of OpenGov as we're doing that, this year for the professional services. Right, and then, next one is purchasing and contract administration. Again, an intern for 21,000, and the reduction of the purchase of workstations at 10,000. As we discussed, we were really lost for space, and the budget team, which was at City Hall, was moved over to the purchasing suite on the CCC on the second floor. And so we had to reconfigure some of the offices and the small conference room to put in workstations And so we have some shared space over there. And so now the budget and purchasing team is now over at CCC, bringing up space over in financial services for the additional positions and reconfiguration. So many of us are just sharing offices in that area. And then finally, the customer service operating budget, which is funded out of the utility enterprise fund. And so we have a postage increase of 12,000 that's anticipated based on the postage anticipated going up. And then AMI support for file formatting, the tablets, the data service plan that would be needed is 20,000. And bank charges had decreased by 120,000.
And I just want to recap. So what she was talking about when we talked about the personnel services over to operating, in this fiscal year, those personnel services were reduced to allow for the temporary services, which is an operational expense. So there was budget transfers throughout this year. That's why the increases look to be exceptionally high, because the amount is different from the adopted FY23 budget. It's been amended through the budget amendment to reduce the personnel services. So it looks like it's extremely higher than last year, but in all actuality, the expenses were up in the personnel services. But because those positions weren't getting filled, we bring in temporary people, and those come out of the operating account. Does that make sense?
Any questions? Commissioner Hudak?
Just a quick question, the status of the ERP platform, when is that going to be fully operational?
So as I mentioned in the capital presentation, Commissioner, it's a multi-year project. We're moving along nicely on our milestone. We're negotiating the final contract, and we hope to have that before the commission, by the end of the summer.
But when will this finance team be able to utilize this new product?
It's approximately,
It's been, you know, it's been a headache for them for years with the current product they're using. And I'm glad to see that there's been no findings with regards to the last audit, and that's a testament to the department and its leadership. But for years, this program has been an issue for them.
Thank you, Commissioner Hudak, for the compliments. And for the yes, the system has, as they have indicated, has been a challenge. But it's also understanding what you're doing in order to use the system the way you need to use it. And so it's been a combination of a number of things to improve our output in order to effectuate the change that was needed in order to produce a financial report without any findings. So it's a little bit of a combination of both. And so as we improve on what we do and how we do, and we know what we're doing, and we have the training and the education and the experience in place, things are becoming better. And we are working with IT with some improvements on the system, just in the meantime, in order to get through this, clean up the data, and prepare for the ERP. So it actually gives us a little time to be better prepared for the new system to come in.
Okay, I'm glad this is being recorded.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Tinsley. Excellent job. Dave, if it's all right, and if the commission's okay with it, it's 7:34 right now. Can we take a 5-minute recess and then come back? Okay, all right.
Is there any way to keep that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, what? I thought you I know, no, you shouldn't. It's not on. You just gotta hit it, and it'll be on. Keep it summarized. You don't gotta go in detail. Breaks over.
How many online? No, they are. Full residents.
Everyone, if we could reconvene, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started again, please. Wait for Ben and Todd, or Ben and Ben to get back. All right, Dave, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. The next presentation we have is the Department of Human Resources, and joining me, we have our Assistant Director of Human Resources, Ms. Karen Belpierre.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Belpierre, the Assistant Director of Human Resources. I will be reviewing the Human Resources presentation for fiscal year 24. Some of our recent achievements include obviously completing the paying class study and the initial implementation of paying class recommendations. Some of the things Ms. Tinsley already indicated that we've gone through the first phase of that, and it will be a continuation within the next month as far as getting through that entire process. We completed labor negotiations, completed the first phase of our onboarding strategy and modified offboarding procedures, concluded a complete vehicle inventory, tracking and auto insurance processes. This was in partnership with our sustainable management department, who was instrumental in helping us reach that goal. We created safety training electronically. We've always had safety training. However, this year we started an electronic library whereby we could house the trainings online and play them back and have a library available for our new hires when they came on board, and so that they can have access to those trainings as well. We also executed alternate recruitment efforts to advertise vacancies. One of the things we did was Pam is highlight our hard to fill positions on various social media sites and also on LinkedIn. We implemented asking employees if they wanted to be highlighted via social media when they receive a promotion. That's been well received, and it's as a means of letting folks know outside of the organization that we allow promotions and promotional opportunities for our new hires. So that's been well received. And also, we also enhanced our city wellness activities, introducing things like lunch and learns, giving employees additional information on benefits that they may already have, but perhaps are underutilizing. For example, next week, we have a mobile unit, dermatology on the spot testing, that's gonna come on site. So we're trying to introduce those things to encourage employees to use preventative services, and also increase engagement and participation. Some of our current initiatives are promoting education and tuition reimbursement. Although we have a tuition reimbursement program, it's still underutilized, so we're working on some marketing strategies to communicate that more and engage employees to perhaps increase our participation in that. We are reviewing pay and class study job descriptions. As you are aware, in the pay and class study, we have currently about 400 classifications, so that has taken some time for our team to review the results of the pay and class study and engage various departments in reviewing those to make sure that they are correct and they reflect accurately before we publicize those on our intranet work site. We are developing performance improvement processes for insurance and inventory tracking as it relates to city property. This excludes vehicle assets, but other property within the city to ensure that we have everything allocated and insured properly. We are developing phase 2 of our onboarding strategies. Basically, phase 2 is going to consist of us interviewing or having a survey for new hires so they can give us input regarding their departmental experiences when they come on board. You'll see in some later slides that some of our goals coming up will be to really look at retention and ways that we can improve our attrition rates. Creating a preventative screening campaign. I mentioned we have a dermatology mobile site coming on. Again, we want to encourage individuals to not be reactive when it comes to their health care, but actually use preventative maintenance long-term that helps our insurance rates and obviously their overall health. Of course, we're going to support the ERP system implementation. And one of the initiatives that we have that we're really looking forward to is creating a total compensation calculator for recruitment and retention. And this is going to give us a tool to be able to visually show employees and potential hires the real cost of their total compensation, which includes benefits. A lot of times employees only consider their salaries. We want them to know what the city is contributing on their behalf for the total cost of their benefits. So we're really excited about partnering with Bentech to introduce this tool as a recruiting means and also as a method of retention. Some of our future considerations are as follows. We're going to continue to evaluate onboarding and offboarding strategy. Again, our focus this year will be developing strategies for the city's retention. This is going to require us to really delve into the experiences that our employees are encountering when they leave human resources and hopefully get some really good feedback so that we can kind of streamline their onboarding. We want to improve professional and development and training. Obviously, again, we want people to stay with the city. So a lot of that is going to be, it's going to be required of us to utilize succession planning and engage them in developing their current skills. If we have current staff that are there, we want to offer opportunities for them to be able to develop and train and learn in their current position and or be eligible for a promotional opportunity. The new performance evaluation, this includes non-bargaining employees. We have engaged a consultant and have worked as a management team to kind of revamp our performance evaluation strategy, taking a different approach and getting leadership's input so that there's some buy-in when it comes time to roll out for that. In addition to that, we have been informed by our administrator, the Gearing Group, that we're looking at a 4% health insurance rate increase. They did come out and meet with us a couple of weeks ago. We looked at trends, utilization, and that is a projected increase for this upcoming year, which would be effective January 2024. And we're going to continue our department preventative risk trainings. Again, one of the things I mentioned in the earlier slide was having a library so that we can record these trainings and have them available for future hires as well. So we're going to continue partnering with our different departments so that we can mitigate risk on the liability side. This is an overview of the Department of HR's operating budget. The details about the numbers will be on some of the upcoming slides. So fiscal year 23 personnel services budget, there was a transfer to operating for contractual services for the recruitment vacancies. Obviously, we have a vacancy for the Director of Human Resources, and we utilize a contractor in the interim in that position. So that's what that cost is in reference to. Regarding operating expenditures, they're trending down due to our decreased dependence in the labor and personnel legal side. Obviously, we had an interim HR director on site that was that was able to help us with some of those labor issues that ordinarily the HR director would have handled. This is an overall view of our insurance services and risk management operations budget. Increase due to turnover and dependents selection of COBRA, and retiree decrease due to retirement age. When we have retirees that retire when they get to age 65, they are no longer on our plan. They go on Medicare, and as a result of that, if they have dependents on the plan that are less than the age of 65, they remain on the plan as dependents and they choose to elect COBRA. So a lot of times that's what happens when we have a retiree that's met the 65 age requirement, and they may have a spouse that's less than 65, they can continue coverage under COBRA. Personnel services decreases due to the HR director vacancy, and the increase in operating expenditures is due to mediations. During the COVID period, a lot of settlements were postponed because of closures and things of that nature. The courts and the systems are beginning to catch up with the lag as a result of COVID. And so now we're seeing an uptick in mediation and various settlements as a result of the uptick in activity. That concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions? No, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission, residents. Ron McKenzie, CIO, presenting for Information Technology. What you'll see in my presentation is an overarching theme for improvement and preparation. I start off by the first bullet, which talks about numerous academic and technical certification accomplishments of my team. Here are some of the achievements that have happened over the course of the past year on my team. One person achieved a master's degree in information technology and cybersecurity. Another received a bachelor's degree in information technology and cybersecurity. One person received their project management professional certification, which means now in the IT department, we have 3 PMPs, and one other person is now taking training so that soon we'll have 4. One person received the certification as a certified ethical hacker. Another one received certification as a certified insider threat specialist. We had 3 people receive certifications for Security Plus, and we have 2 people going through that program now as we continue to strive for improvement and preparation, keeping us safe from any threats and threat actors that may be out there. Other achievements that we have. In GIS, we created and implemented the Dashboard for Capital Improvement Project, which now you can see proudly on the front page of our website. We also in GIS created a web map application for elevation certificates, so people can see their elevation certificates and print them out. As we know, we upgraded the commission chambers, both audio, visual, and audio, and improved that virtual experience for those who are connecting via Zoom. Other security achievements. We have a mobile device management software implementation for cell phones to allow us to better manage cell phones. VMware host upgrade to increase security and improve failover for VMware various different servers, and maintaining cybersecurity training as needed, but at a minimum annually in compliance with House Bill 7055. So when I send those emails telling you to do the training, it's actually vital. Next slide, please. Current initiatives that we're working on. We obtain a data backup system which encrypts data to maintain integrity and monitors data risk and threats. That system is called Rubrics. We're obtaining circuits and equipment for wireless guest networks. We had that request for guest networks in certain buildings, CCC, City Commission chambers, and Fire Station 102, and look to do that. Implementation of security information event monitoring tools, something to allow us to have all events and we can be able to view them, something that comes up with audits. Researching a new phone system for implementation, the end of this year, or early next year, fiscal year that is, and implementing an attack server to simulate network attacks and help us increase our security platform. Future considerations, House Bill 7055 and 7057, cybersecurity bill compliance. That bill has came out in last year and was enacted in July 1st of 2022, and various different mandates continue to come up, and just making sure that we're prepared for those mandates. ERP implementation, as we've all talked about, with new system and migration from our old system. Creating an app for rapid assessment reporting at DFB for storms and to make sure that everybody can see various information happening in real time. Creating a zero trust atmosphere for remote applications, just making sure that we stay safer. And workplace mobility and preparation for disasters, just in case COVID or something happens, making sure that staff can work effectively no matter where they are and provide services to customers. Next slide. Now for the numbers. In personnel services, you'll see a small change of $9,986. Operational expenditures, you'll see a slight change of $58,000, $53,000. But overall, you'll see also in the capital outlay, you'll see a big reduction of almost $200,000. That's because we have no major capital projects this year coming up or that we're proposing. You all approved last year, and so we implemented, as I talked about before, the rubrics, Splunk, some of those other things I talked about. We have that equipment, and my goal is to make sure that our staff is able to operate it properly and to be redundant in staff operating. What someone mentioned earlier is that if you have a great tool but no one to operate it, that's an issue. So we're making sure that that happens next year. Speaking of improvement and also preparation, I'm requesting a new position, an IT ERP coordinator. That person's position or that person's role is to make sure now as we move into the implementation phase of the ERP project, that from an IT perspective, they're able to handle that, learn what's happening with the new system, provide training back to the IT people, provide rights, work with our project manager and the other thing. What frequently happens when ERP projects are implemented is that people forget that they have to keep business going on a daily basis, as well as take on the heavy load of ERP. And sometimes that'll stall the system or stall implementation or stall moving forward. So we're trying to plan in advance, as I'm talking about preparation, to make sure that we're prepared for it. Two of the positions in the IT department, as it says, personnel services, include reallocation of 2 positions to utilities. So 1 GIS position and 1 IT integrator is paid for by utilities. There's a 50K actually increase in operational due to an annual rise in cost for services, and that's primarily software. It goes up 5 to 7%, so that's that 50,000 is that small change. Reduction in capital outlay, I talked about that due to no new projects. The amount shown is for annual computer, switch, and server upgrades. So as opposed to asking for more money this year, we're actually asking for less. Any questions?
No, it doesn't look like this. Go right ahead. First of all, it's so good to have you back and be with us. You know, we really need you, and thank you. So this past year, how many recognizable threats were there to our system to infiltrate it? And if you could identify a number, if there were any successful?
None were successful, and there are some almost on a daily basis, whether ransomware comes to us or certain types of attacks that come. We just have various equipment that usually catches it, or not usually, but catches it. So we've had no threats or any kind of things get through to our system.
Okay, but the threats were there, but nobody was successful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good
Next,
eve- oh,
I was going to do an introduction,
sorry.
but
Okay. I'm ready.
next we have the Office of the City Clerk for the first time in the budget meeting, Ms. Heather Montalene.
Thanks,
No.
everybody. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and members of the public. I'm Heather Montalene, City Clerk, and I have the pleasure of presenting the Office of the City Clerk's budget. Our recent achievements include assisting IT with the upgrades to the commission chambers, which provided more audio and visual clarity to those who attend meetings via Zoom. The upgrades also allowed you all, the elected officials, to opt out of having to log into Zoom. We oversaw 2 successful elections, both citywide, and by successful, I mean all candidates and political action committees submitted their reports in a timely manner, and there were no issues with or at the polling places. Previously, each department was responsible for the remediation of their own web pages, but the clerk's office recently took over document remediation and brought it in-house, which helped not only reduce our remediation budget, but it also reduced planning and development services by $10,000, finance by $5,000, parks and recreation by $5,000, community services $5,000, the community redevelopment agency.
Where you getting from that? There's your phone right there. Let me phone. Sorry.
And the community redevelopment agency by $4,000. Last year, we remediated over 600 documents in-house, and this year we have already remediated 500 to include the comprehensive plan. Last year, we processed and submitted over 900 recordings to Broward County, which include the hold harmless agreements, the sidewalk waivers, lien satisfaction, as well as many others. And this year, we have already processed 400 thus far. Last year, we processed over 4,000 public records requests citywide, and this year we have processed 2,500 thus far. And lastly, we successfully completed our public records request training, which is a state requirement. A special thank you again to our city attorney for conducting the training. And I'm happy to say that we had the highest turnout that I've seen since I've been here with the city. So I just want to thank Dave, Horace, and the directors for their support on encouraging staff to attend. Our current initiatives include the completion of the advisory board handbook, which will help with the onboarding process for advisory board appointments and reappointments. We are working with IT to install a touchscreen TV in our lobby area, which will assist, especially during election time, when candidates want to know where a polling place is located or to see what areas their district covers. The hard copy printout that is currently in our lobby area is extremely difficult to read and just outdated. So accessing the GIS maps electronically through our website will be very helpful. The TV will also help with public records requests should a document be exempt from distribution. For example, under federal law, copyrighted plans are open for public inspection, but they cannot be reproduced or redistributed. Therefore, this will allow requesters to come directly to our office to review the information instead of having to coordinate with planning or building. As the records custodian, these type of things should be completely funneled through my office, so the addition of this equipment will be beneficial to the city as a whole. As previously mentioned, we took over the document remediation, so we are currently working with each department on their webpage to ensure all documents are remediated. Remediation of the website will be a forever process. As new documents are replaced and updated, they will require remediation. However, we hope to have a better handle on the website by December 2024. We're still evaluating the possibility of moving forward with website advertising. There are still a few uncertainties. For example, the regulations for advertising, rezoning, and budget ads. The website did finally go live on May 17th, and the 3 entities that have opted in still do not have a link on their website notifying individuals as to where the notices can be found. Also, the website looks similar to that of Sun Sentinel, where there's 71 different categories, which looks very convoluted. So for example, there's a category for assumed names, divorces, estates, notices of suits, etc., which we just would not need. I am currently working with the vendor to see if their implementation team can curtail the website to fit the needs of Deerfield Beach. And lastly, it has always been customary in the city clerk's office to have staff cross-train to ensure nothing falls through the cracks when someone is out. So I want to get back on track with that, especially with the new assistant city clerk coming on board. Our future considerations include implementing an electronic submission system for our lobbyist registrations. Additionally, we want to see if we can work with finance and IT to see if we can connect the payment portal for the lobbyist registrations to that of Paymentus, which is used for utility billing. We hope to update our public records request software, Just FOIA, which will assist in the efficiency of the process, especially when requests involve information that is exempt from public inspection. For example, social security numbers. Currently, when documents are uploaded by departments, clerk staff has to go into the JustFOIA system, download and save the documents to our desktop to review and make the necessary redactions. Once redacted, clerk staff has to re-upload the document or documents back into JustFOIA. This upgrade will allow all redactions to be completed within JustFOIA and will also point us directly to where we left off should someone be out and another person step in to finish the redactions. The upgrade will also allow us to review emails within the system, which will be extremely efficient, especially when legal is involved. Currently, IT provides the emails via a PST file, which is then saved to our desktop, so it can be opened, reviewed, and redacted in Outlook. Once reviewed, we have to save the PST file as a zip file, then add it into JustFOIA. This new upgrade will again allow everything to include emails to be reviewed and redacted within the JustFOIA system. The upgrade will also tag duplicate records and or emails. So for example, if there's an email chain, it will tag every single email associated with that particular email chain and point us to the final email. So clerk staff, along with legal, won't have to keep reading the same email over and over. In conjunction with IT, we want to implement a new an electronic records management policy. With it being 2023, many records are now being completed and stored electronically. So we as a city must ensure that we are still following the state retention schedules and making sure our electronic records are properly stored and archived. Our offsite records management storage agreement expires in September 2024. So we are going to see what other alternatives are out there to store our records. And lastly, our next election will be in 2025, which is citywide. So we want to start preparing for that. There is a decrease in personnel services due to the recent staffing changes in the office. There is a slight increase in programming and software due to the public records request software upgrade. There is a slight decrease in other contractual services due to document remediation being done in-house, which again will be a reduction in some of the other departments' budgets as well. And lastly, we do not have an election in 2024. Therefore, the clerk's office has an overall reduction of 26.5%. Any questions?
It's gonna go to her head, guys. It's not you there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Any questions? Thank you. Good job, Heather.
Next, we have Public Affairs and Marketing, Ms. Rebecca Medina Stewart.
Hi, everybody. Rebecca Medina Stewart, Public Affairs and Marketing. Good evening, everybody. We're going to start off with some of the pretty pictures. You know, I love pictures. Sorry. No, really, we're going to start off with our recent achievements for our department. In graphic design services, in addition to just the daily departmental support that we offer, I think the standouts this year are the annual budget documents that we regularly design, the water quality report, which is a public-facing document. And this year, we took on the legislative agenda, which was a pretty big hit in Tallahassee. So we're proud of that. In education and communication campaigns, this year's 11th Way referendum campaign was definitely a standout, as well as the Beach Nourishment Project. We handled a lot of engagement on that. There was a lot of public engagement, not just with the social media component of these campaigns, but also the newsletter components. We got a lot of questions from those newsletters that went out. This year, we took on some projects with HR, particularly in recruitment support. We've begun to publicly highlight and recognize employees hitting a milestone anniversary in the city. We also teamed up with HR to promote jobs on social media, as Karen mentioned just a little while ago. And we also created an onboarding video for new hires. The DFB live stream experience. We've completed the underwater camera UV light and infrastructure updates and testing. We also launched the DFB apiary camera on May 1st, and that resulted in some media coverage. Local 10 recently did a feature on these cameras and on this particular apiary on their environmental segment called Don't Trash Your Treasure. And we got a lot of attention on that on social media. In communications, our Instagram platform has grown from 11,000 to 14,000 followers. And as I've mentioned in years past, that's important because that's the 18 to 34-year-old demographic that we've been trying to reach. And so that's growing fast. And we're excited to see where it's going to be going here in the next year. We expect to have about 15,000 we expect to hit the 15,000 mark by the end of the year. We've added 2,000 new subscribers to the newsletter eBlast, and that's with a 46% open rate. The national standard open rate is 37%, and we've actually grown this 2% from last year, from 44 to 46% on the open rate. So the newsletter, even though a lot of cities believe that the newsletters are dying and that email blasts are dying, we actually have a pretty healthy open rate, and our newsletter is growing. YouTube, our most popular PR tool, which also houses the DFB live stream experience, that we've grown that from 6.9 million viewers in 22 to 12.2 million views. And we've added about 16,000 new subscribers to the channel. We currently have about 60,000 subscribers, and that's worldwide. This year, we just recently, as a matter of fact, we won 3 Silver Telly Awards for the Juneteenth PSA that we created and produced last year, a Packer Rattler Camp coverage video, as well as a Dear Resident Spotlight feature. And just to kind of put this into perspective, the Telly Awards are probably second to the Emmys in video awards. Just to our competition and the people that we were alongside for these awards were marketing teams from organizations like Chick-fil-A, Tennessee Titans, Golden State Warriors. And so we're real proud to have brought those home to the city. One of the other achievements that we worked on this year, and this is more of an ongoing project, I think. We created new signage at the pier and along the beach to reduce sign pollution and maintain consistency of the city brand. This year, we've got new trash cans going up at the pier that are also wrapped with more branding. And if you go up and down the beach, everything looks the same and it looks consistent as it should. Some of the things we're working on now, we're working on the layout and design of the strategic plan, which the city manager mentioned just a little while ago. We are also working on the infrastructure of the Arboretum cameras, and we hope to have those cameras mounted and tested by the end of August. And that those will be added to the DFB live stream experience as well. We will be pushing out 3 more installments of the Dear Resident Spotlight by the end of fiscal 23. We have 2 additional campaigns this year, one in which we are working with environmental services on, and that's the AMI project. We're also working with sustainable management on a composting pilot campaign, and those will be launched by the end of September. We conducted a communication survey this fiscal year, and nearly 15% of our responders said that they would like to receive text communications. And last year, you might remember, you did give us some money in the budget to go ahead and release that text communications tool. I am happy to report that the 15,000 that you gave us, we didn't even need half of that. We were able to add another element or component to our eBlast software. It's brand new this year with the company, and we saved about $13,000 on that tool. And that's going to be launched by the end of the fiscal year as well. Some future considerations, some projects and initiatives that we'll be working on this fiscal 24. We are launching a tourism channel on YouTube called Destination Deerfield Beach. We currently have the bones already in place on that, and we Hope to have that launched by the next fiscal year, for the end of the next fiscal year. We'll also be producing more proof of performance videos next fiscal year, highlighting large-scale projects by the city, things like capital projects and beach projects. And in fact, we're releasing something out here hopefully soon on the beach. We're working with sustainable management on the city's live hive demonstrations. We were able to test this out last week with sustainable management and our local beekeeper. We entertained a live chat on YouTube and Facebook Live. We had a few technical difficulties, but we finally did get it up and running, and we're excited about what we saw in the chat and where this is moving. And we're looking to hook up with the local schools to get their buy-in on these environmental projects that we are okay. This fall, sorry, I lost my spot. This fall, as you know, the Bezos Academy is opening over at the Braithwaite campus, and we will be working on some promotional campaigns for enrollment on that. One of the things we do need to really think about and watch this year is there are some changes to the crisis communications tool that we are using. Alert DFB is something that is housed by a company called Everbridge, and Everbridge is a company that is contracted through the state of Florida, and we receive this crisis alert service for free through the state. Recently, just before hurricane season started, the state fired Everbridge, and then they brought them back on because they didn't realize how many cities were involved with Everbridge. And so they are saying that they are going to discontinue the contract in December. And we definitely are watching that because we just don't know where they're going to go with this thing. And right now, as it stands, Alert DFB is a tool. It's a crisis communications tool that we use a lot in times of crisis. We use a lot during hurricane season, boil water alerts. And it is something that our locals, our residents have really learned how to use. Currently, we've got about 45,000 subscribers on this, and which is a really good number for a city of our size.
Just real quick, this was that 4 a.m. emergency test alert issue that happened.
Yeah. So some of the things that we want to consider moving forward is the use of AI. One of those things is the use of AI. AI-driven technology can be used to identify trends and insights faster than ever before, which is supposedly going to save time for communications professionals. For a small team like mine, AI is something that could potentially help us. We just don't know how yet. We do have a conference this year that we are attending where they will be doing a lot of teaching on, and so we will be looking into this this fiscal year. Podcasting is also something that we should probably be looking into. It's been around for a long time, but the popularity of podcasting has just surged. And this could be good for us to educate our residents on everything from policy changes to infrastructure upgrades, and even helping us squash the rumor mill on occasion. We are also working with the CRA, and we're talking with the CRA. We're in early talks with the CRA, that is, to talk about a new virtual tourism center. It's definitely very preliminary and early, but it is something that you may be hearing about in the next couple of fiscal years. My operating budget. There has been a slight increase in personnel services, and this is a cost that we will be sharing with Ocean Rescue for administrative support. And that additional cost will be $35,000 to my budget. There has been a decrease in operating expenses due to the cheaper version of the texting tool that I talked about a little while ago. The overall increase is about close to 7% total increase in the overall budget for my department. Questions?
If you can go back to slide 124, please. Okay, thank you. I just would urge you to be very careful with the use of AI. And for those that don't know what that means, is artificial intelligence. You know, the reading that I have been doing on that is that on the national level, it tends to actually at times you can't rely on the information because it's so advanced, it begins to make decisions on its own. And so I would just say, whatever way that you're looking at it for us, be very careful with it because, there were people that at very high levels were saying that, it's just too much, too fast. It can be very destructive, you might come in one day and it might say all of your staff and yourself should be gone, but so you got to watch out for it. The other thing is that
I can squash that today.
thank you. The other thing is that I would like to say to the commission and to the staff, this department, we have to be very, very careful with in terms of how it is being utilized because they do such a great job. We tend to take advantage of these things. I mean, like Dave is at everything. You've all seen the videos that he's done. Incredible. He's all over the place working tirelessly. And I wonder where this can go because, I think that we ought to grow our department, our public affairs department and marketing. I think we ought to have a couple, maybe part-time people to relieve the stress because it's a lot of work and our people are doing an unbelievable job. There are people that that I have talked to in other cities that look at our underwater camera. I was talking to some ladies from the city from Fort Lauderdale. During their break, they go and look at our underwater cameras. That's their way to relax. Nobody else has it. Am I right? Nobody else have that?
Miami has an underwater camera.
Miami has it.
Yeah.
But we're the only one in this area that has it.
yeah.
We need to grow. I mean, we got some bright minds. in
Miami's
there.
came after ours.
Excuse me?
Miami's came after ours.
Okay. she had to get that in. I just think that we could tax our department so then they're doing a lot, but if we're not careful, one of these days we'll come in. Where's Dave? He's moved on or whatever because we're taxing these people. I think we ought to consider putting on some part-time personnel to relieve the stress and the work so we can grow it. So the ideas that are within that department can grow and we can keep this going. We're the first one that had the underwater camera. I was up in Juno Beach at the pier up there, and there were some guys while I was up there saying, we're going down the Deerfield, about 7, 8 guys, because they saw some fish that they were pursuing on our underwater camera. So just something that we need to do. I think that we can tax this department because David, he's all over the place. He's all over the place. Incredible videos, always doing the interviews. I think we should consider throwing some part-time employees, a couple of them, to relieve the stress a little bit, 1, and 2, to grow that department.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, if somebody wants to, I kind of feel like
Good evening, Eric Bauer, Director of Plan Development Services. So recent achievements for the Planning Development Services Department is we did complete the comprehensive plan We are still part of the Vision Zero Pairing Pilot Program. Just as a reminder to that, is this is the inaugural year for this. It was a national search, national grant application that we applied for and received. Only 13 other cities in the country received as well. US DOT did they did a pilot program for this 2 years prior, and the Broward MPO was one of the members of that. And they were one of the recommendatory boards for us. So it's a great opportunity for us to be a part of the Vision Zero program throughout the entire country, and can lead us to some fantastic opportunities down the road, which I'll speak about a little bit later. In addition, we had a lot of major development project review. Of course, Vista Clara was just approved for its revision. While not every item above you was approved or has actually been before you, this has taken a lot of work of staff's time and the amount of reviews it takes for us to get these items before you. Next slide. So the current initiatives we have, as Stephanie mentioned before, we are in the process of converting the BSO Fire Life Safety Inspection Program to GovEasy. This will be the same program that they currently use for BTRs. So it'll make the clerks in finance have an easier responsibility, as well as giving us the opportunity to ensure that all businesses are paying all of their fees. So it's a good process for us. We are going to complete the record retention process so we can do online plan review. We've working still towards the Northwest Area Improvement Plan. We've had multiple meetings with DOT and the county and our consultants, and working forward to making that a reality. We have some land use amendments and some zoning categories that were identified in the comprehensive plan that need to be updated, and we'll bring those forward to you later this year. Again, just going back to the Vision Zero Master Plan, earlier this year, the commission adopted a resolution to allow us to move forward with the Vision Zero Master Plan, Vision Zero Action Plan that will allow the city to provide a new direction into the types of improvements we're trying to make to our roadways. We had a complete streets master plan that was approved in 2015. We were the first city in Broward County to do that. We're not the first city in Broward County to move forward with the Vision Zero plan, but we are one of the first few to start this process. And it does provide us, again, an excellent opportunity to take the first stab at some of these grant applications and funding sources. We are working with a few other departments in economic development, community services, for the Central City redevelopment plan. And we are going to be doing some larger updates to the land development code related to signs and business uses and some of the state statutes that we'll talk about in a moment. Excellent, thank you. So future considerations that we have, again, are some of those state statutes. We are currently tracking 9 different statutes that have a impact on either the planning department or the building department, and how those could impact either our code or our way of business. We are working at additional review and regulation for Broward County, especially related to the elevation changes that they have been providing or mandating, throughout Broward County, and some of the conflicts they have with current code. Additionally, Broward County, as the state has now required that the 40-year inspection go to 25 years. And every property that meets the criteria will now need an inspection at the 25-year mark, and then 10 years after, so 35, 45, 55. And the amount of new inspections and reviews that all of these properties are going to have to go through. The 40-year inspection process for the last 2 years, City of Deerfield Beach was really one of the few cities that was on top of the 40-year inspection process before Surfside. But still, the amount of work that we've gone through in these last 2 years has been a large burden to the building department and code compliance, as code compliance has to move forward to ensure that these properties meet the requirements. There's only so many construction engineers out there that can do the work for these buildings to ensure they meet the requirements. And so a lot of these buildings who are well-meaning to try to move forward just don't have the staff or the opportunities, the money and the resources to meet their requirement, to meet their deadline. So we've been working with those buildings, and this is going to be a large impact to the city of Deerfield Beach as projects that, within the 15-year time span between 25 and 40, will have to move forward with this process. We are looking at updating planning, building impact fees. I'm sorry, planning, building and impact fees for all three, and trying to make those more in line with current requirements and state statutes. Conversation that I'd like to begin is the public art program. A few years ago, we did adopt a public art program. However, we did not choose to fund the public art program. So currently, the only mechanisms that we have are during development process. And again, talking about Vision Zero, one of the applications that we can use to go for funding resources is Safe Streets and Roads for All, which is SS4A is a short for it, which is the US DOT application. About $200 million is being allocated per year to fund this program. It's an ability for us to not just try to get what we call demonstration projects, which are similar to what we did on 3rd Avenue, but also to fund large scale projects for the city moving forward. And of course, the amount of work the planning department is doing for the due diligence 1045 Southwest 11th Way. I do want to also bring up, I did fail to mention just the Live Local, what Live Local probably will be doing to the planning department, to other departments as we move forward. And how we're going to be processing that. We're working right now to determine locations, heights, other impacts that the city may have, so that we can be best prepared moving forward with what might be coming towards the city, and then being able to provide the commission all the information and all the things that we can and cannot be reviewing. Next slide. So operating budget, the operating budget is general fund for planning and zoning, the building services fund and tree preservation fund. The code compliance is still there as it's for prior years. Move forward. As far as planning and zoning is concerned, the operational cost is moving up slightly just for consultant services. The only real change we're requesting at this time is a change to a position for our planner position. We fund 2 planner positions that are equal. But as David mentioned earlier, in trying to do retention and recruitment for planners, to have a planner 1, 2, 3 process that allows them to grow in place, to receive an additional title, slightly additional pay and things of that nature, to try and keep that retention process. So that's what we're looking for in this particular year as far as the org chart. It is only 2 positions. It's just 3 terms, 3 terminologies. And as far as the building fund is concerned, we expect this particular year, the FY23 year, we're going to be slightly above the grand total. We project ourselves right now to be somewhere between $5.3 and $5.5 million for FY23. I'm projecting to be slightly higher than that for FY24. We'll talk about it in just one moment, but the reason for these things is really just about the different types of projects that move back and forth throughout the year, and the larger projects that come from building permit and the timing for those. Next slide. And then the tree preservation fund, the major improvement for this year will be Dixie Highway Fence Phase 2, as we discussed earlier. And we are adding increases to Right Tree, Right Place in the Shade Tree program for the upcoming year. We received a very positive response to the Right Tree, Right Place program, which is essentially trees that are within power lines or could potentially abut power lines. And a lot of larger trees, residents don't have the ability to either trim or remove those trees. A lot of times it'll lead to someone hat racking that tree, which can cause a code case and move on further down the line, which we don't want to do. So the city has a program right now where we can either correctly prune that tree or even remove that tree under the Right Tree, Right Place program. And of course, the Shade Tree program is shade trees in front yards and that application process, and increasing that process throughout the single family home communities of Deerfield Beach. Next slide. And just some quick graphs regarding to the building fund. Again, for FY23, we do project to be right around $5.5 million, which is consistent-ish to the last couple of years. I do foresee that the building fund will be somewhere between the high 4s to mid 5s throughout the next few years. That does seem to be the way in which we're moving. And the next slide. And as far as permits are concerned, of course, not all permits are equal. Some permits are not much money. Some permits are a lot of money. So while we're probably around the same amount of permits we had last year, we are projected to have a higher revenue this year. And I project our permits for FY '24 to probably be slightly higher, but less than 8,000. And that's all I have. Questions?
According to the graph, could you go back to that graph? The slide, yeah, the one after that, that one. So, in 20, we had 6 million. Is that,
Yes, 2020, 2019, 2020 were our banner years.
Okay.
The amount of development that occurred in those years, JM family,
Mhm.
along with the Publix improvement, the RNDC improvement, the beginning of the improvements to the single-family homes that formerly Tam O'Shanter Golf Course, all of those were coming in at that time. And so 2019, 2020 were, I would call banner years for the city.
okay, and that's,
They're not consistent, frankly. The reality is that if you went back even further, you would see the amount of permits and dollar amounts would be consistent,
okay,
whereas 2019 or 2020 are a bit of an anomaly.
okay, all right, that's it, that answers it. Thank you.
Since where I live, the buildings are all 40 and 50 years old. Could you send me a copy of the new regulation when they have to be inspected?
So I can send you the new state statutes that have occurred.
Okay.
However, we won't have the buildings in place. BORA is actually the responsible party of who regulates which buildings in which years. And then they provide us a list on a monthly basis moving forward. So I can speak to BORA,
Okay,
but they're the ones that do that.
whatever you can send me, I'd appreciate it, because I'd like to make them to be at least aware. We have 283 buildings and in Century Village that are between 40 and 50 years old. I'd like to make them aware that what's coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commission. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Chris Maury. I'm Director of Economic Development. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our department and the very important things that we do for the city. I just want to point out as a reminder that this presentation is only on half of what our department does. This is the economic development side tonight. You will hear from me in August about the other half of our department through the discussions about the CRA budget. So in terms of recent achievements, we've had a very busy last fiscal year for sure. I won't go through some of these things that were previously mentioned, but the Economic Development Department did play a big role in the push for the referendum and the education on that effort. In fact, we were part of the team that drafted the invitation to negotiate document. So we're real proud of that achievement. Our economic development flip book that we have on the city's website has won an award from the International Economic Development Council. And now we're getting requests from cities all over the place trying to replicate that document as it's now become a best practice for others. Likewise, our Ready to Work program has been extremely successful. This year, we've had 64 graduates so far. Those people participate in things from certificates, soft skills training, all sorts of different workforce training programs. And that program, actually Ready to Work, it is also a new model, and we will be submitting that for an IEDC award this year as well. In terms of small business and entrepreneurship training, we've interacted with 500 businesses to date this fiscal year. The city's had 370 new businesses this fiscal year to date. So, we plan on probably being, at our normal being between like 500 and 550 new businesses a year. And then, of course, you recall at City Commission, we launched the new Central City Redevelopment Implementation Model, which is basically harnessing the city's existing resources in terms of staffing to stimulate redevelopment, and the strategic formation of a redevelopment enterprise fund to create sustainable local funding source to leverage outside grants and to get redevelopment underway, as well as renewing our commitment to community inclusion and engagement. We've launched now in partnership with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, the Level Up program. That's a new program that we've created to try to harness the rate of new small business formation amongst African-American women in particular. The chamber and our staff met one-on-one with 29 potential new business owners to create focus groups for this program. And we have a launch of our first focus group coming up next Wednesday. And we have had 18 people register for that program thus far. So that looks very good for us. Of course, we also had our job fair that's been incredibly successful. We had 60 people attend, and you can, some of our participants were Publix, Broward Schools, Transportation, JM Family, the Doubletree, Dunkin' Donuts, and even our own City of Deerfield Beach. So we're not just putting on the job fair, but we are a participant ourselves. And then Broward Up implementation. We've been kicking that off and moving forward with that. We had a nice tour with President Hale of our city and different facilities where they can start launching programs. And some of those programs will be launched here in the next few weeks, and you'll be getting information about those opportunities in your weekly update. And, another achievement is that, our Economic Development Council had a change in executive directorship. And so the EDC decided to move forward without an executive director. And we have renewed our partnership with the EDC, and now our staff is supporting the EDC to, help them be a private sector, component of our overall economic development strategy. So for current initiatives, right now, I've actually just this afternoon, hot off the press, got the first draft of our new market study for the Central City area. That market study will consist of a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It will look at our demographics and then look at our commercial and retail gaps that we have in that area. This is an important tool for us, not just for benchmarking our overall success, but in this case, we're going to be using that information as the baseline to align our new zoning proposals in the Central City area so that zoning speaks directly to the market environment. We talked about Central City redevelopment funding strategy. And I'm going to loop two together. The Cultural Arts District Strategy is a new initiative that we're undertaking. And it's going to be probably, most launched with the further implementation of the City Hall Master Plan and further marketing of the Pioneer Grove redevelopment project. So, there's things that's happening with the cultural arts as well. Placemaking is something that we're working on as projects come forward in conjunction with capital improvements projects. Placemaking would be building off of these capital projects for wayfinding that we're implementing right now. So it could be anything from signage to new streetscapes that we're working on with planning and Eric's group and Priscilla's group, through different streetscapes, different sidewalks, even different planting types to further define areas, making them special and noteworthy and areas of interest. Of course, 1045 is 1045 Southwest 11th Way is and still, it was a past initiative, it's a current initiative, and it'll be a future initiative because this is something that we all know is going to be taking several years to come to fruition. I'm part of the team that is working on that, still underway. as you know, this year we'll be moving into negotiation of the developers agreement, continuing to ensure that that project reflects what was proposed and finding ways to leverage the energy of that project financially and in a way that, you know, includes the community in its success. Next, by this time next week, hopefully, if all goes well at the county, Broward County will have a new economic development incentive program. This program will take the place of the former qualified targeted industries incentive that we had. I think everyone here on commission knows, you know, that we've had great success with that with some of our more advanced industries. And now that it's gone at the state level, it's very nice that we will have that tool here in Broward County and in Deerfield Beach, so that it gives us more tools in our toolbox to deal with companies or to offer to companies to incentivize them to come here. And then a current initiative that you'll be actually talking about more next week at City Commission, you know, is the Pier Restaurant invitation to negotiate. Our department was involved in the drafting of the ITN document and sort of guiding the evaluation and procurement process as part of a, you know, a team effort for sure. But our department will stay in this, you know, project through negotiation, probably offering support through, you know, construction and getting the new restaurant into that location at the pier, so that it becomes just a very, you know, meets the goals and objectives of the City Commission in terms of having like a really nice amenity at that location for the city. And our next big project is working on the implementation of a city rideshare program. So stay tuned about that. That's, you know, just my next big project coming up. But, you know, we've met with several different rideshare companies, and we need to pick a procurement, you know, a selection method to select something and to scope it out in a way that's a nice new program for our community. So future considerations, I think you've heard enough about a lot of these previously, so I'll go through them quickly. Of course, the city manager talked about the overall economic landscape. You know, we were in a period of uncertainty, I think, but now that the discussions about the debt ceiling are kind of put to bed, that, you know, a lot of the upturn or the slight upturn that you see now is because, you know, the development community is reacting to that. And hopefully, you know, we will avoid a massive recession, like the city manager said. But of course, a future consideration, this is not new news, and you've actually just dealt with it at your last city commission meeting, and you will again, is densification and affordability issues or attainability issues in terms of housing. You know, we need to look for ways to move from the aging idea of a single family home into coming up with some smart strategies for some strategic densification in our community that can assist us in expanding our tax base and also serve as a stimulation for, you know, additional commercial and retail development. The retail and commercial development that I feel like the city wants is not going to happen with, you know, with the same population that we have. You know, we need to have a certain level of smart densification in certain nodes in the city to encourage that. We're working on permitting automation. That's something that we talk about all the time in conjunction with planning and development services, you know, making it more streamlined, more simple, simplification of the process, and giving people easier access to that information. And then, of course, you know, the sleeping giant in the room is the commuter rail transit development strategy. As soon as Fort Lauderdale figures out how to get a train across a river, this is going to be really real for us, and we need to have all hands on deck so that we can keep on moving towards getting our game ready, so that when it does happen, we'll be there to catch that ball. And you know, the number of small businesses that are forming in the United States and here in South Florida is still off the charts. And so that's something that we're going to continue to focus on in our economic development strategy, is harnessing that power and people's, you know, desire to start their own business and be self-employed and be an entrepreneur as a key component of our economic development strategy. And then I probably don't have to tell you that, you know, public-private partnerships are going to be a big component of all of this, not just in economic development, but in all of, you know, all of the projects that we undertake as a city. And, you know, we're starting to build a nice, healthy track record of successful implementation of P3s. And so we'll continue to work on those in the future. And how are we going to do this? I'm real happy that to tell you that, I mean, essentially our department is level funded this year. You know, we did have some increase in our personnel last year, excuse me, to support this new, you know, the wide expanded economic development program that we have. But everything I've described to you, you know, today is being done, you know, essentially with the same budget that we had last year. Notable expenditures, of course, as I discussed, is Dixie Highway rezoning. A big push to market the central city area, communication, our community engagement and planning for that area. And then, of course, workforce training. Those programs have been so successful and have really made a change, you know, a big difference in people's lives, Deerfield Beach residents' lives. And so we've set aside money for that as well. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Last presentation that we have for the evening is Community Services and Mr. Jonathan Salas.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. Jonathan Salas, Director of Community Services, and I have the privilege of presenting Community Services budget tonight, where we educate, elevate, and cultivate. So first, we have awarded competitive grants and appropriations, which we have $4.1 million. And that encompasses the FEC Railroad fencing along Dixie Highway, the Aquatic Center, and several other funding opportunities. I'm proud to announce that we went 50% on appropriations awarded since we last met. Awarded entitlement grants, we're at $3.1 million, and that includes our CDBG, SHIP, HOME, Older Americans Act, and funding sources similar to those. Pending grants and appropriations, we have an astonishing $26.9 million in grants that are pending. And a lot of the projects that we discussed tonight is kind of relying on some of these funding opportunities to come through. So this is our MLK construction and design. This is funding for the Center for Active Aging. This is funding for the Southeast 15 Ave Bridge and several other projects we have going on throughout the city. So I'm proud to say that with our aggressive approach with grants, we've been able to leverage a lot of our CIP projects, which the list goes on as to projects that we've leveraged funding with. But one that I would remiss to mention is HMGP, our Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, which we been able to leverage some of those costs for the retrofitting the City Hall. Next, we look at our Attainable Housing Program and its impact subsidy increase. So as we all mentioned, the prices of housing in Deerfield Beach and Broward County throughout the country is very high right now. So our program is designed for low to moderate income residents. So typically when we get a low to moderate income resident who qualify for the funding subsidy, typically they can't afford to purchase a home based on the prices of homes now. So to alleviate some of that frustration, what we recently did was we increased our maximum subsidy amount to $70,000. So if you apply for any one of our attainable housing programs, the increase for maximum subsidy has increased. We've been also, thanks to Commissioner Preston for championing this and the entire commission for approving the Center for Active Aging, changing of the name to the Braithwaite Center for Active Aging. This has been well received by the community. We've received a lot of buy-in from this, as well as our enrollment numbers have gone up as a result of the renaming of the center. I'm proud to report that we reopened the adult daycare February of this year, and we currently have 14 clients that are attending on a daily basis, and we have several clients that are in queue for registration. Our adult daycare maximum capacity is 30, so we're at a good place right now, being that we were closed for 2.5 years, so we're just making sure that we're operating at our full potential. Moving along to the first annual Back to School block party in memory of Deputy Harold Morrison. Last year, on August of last year, we were able to host our first backpack distribution. We were able to provide 1,200 backpacks to residents in the community. This was not done alone through community services. This was in partnership with BSO, Parks and Rec, and several of our civic groups throughout the community. So we plan on hosting our second annual backpack distribution on August 5th, and we're looking to hand out 1,500 backpacks this year. Next slide, please. So community services, current initiatives. So the first one we have here is the Braithwaite Center for Active Aging Construction Enrollment and Programming. As I previously mentioned, our enrollment is up. That's in part to a registration blitz that we have. We've canvassed the entire city and we've gone to all of our senior communities. We've been through Century Village, Praxis, and several of our communities to register clients who are right in our backyard. So on average, we're averaging 100 clients daily are attending the center. We've looked at new programming, which currently I can report that we now have baby boomers that are attending our facility. So we're tailoring our programming to cater to that demographics. Currently, we have three different demographics at the center. So we want to make sure that our programming tailors to all of our demographics. Our caregiver support groups, oftentimes our caregivers, they're under immense stress with caring for their loved ones. So we've decided to offer programming for our caregivers as well. So we have guest speakers come in, lectures and training, so that we equip our caregivers with the tools necessary so that they can care for their loved ones at home. Competitive grant solicitation. As we all know, we talked about inflation tonight, and what we've seen oftentimes is we'll apply for a grant for a particular dollar amount, and then 2 years later, once we get an agreement in hand and we're ready to roll out that project, the funding isn't sufficient based on the cost of things today. So that's one of those things that we'll continuously work aggressively towards soliciting grant opportunities so that we can continue to offset the CIP and projects that we have going on in the city. Another program that we're going to be rolling out the fall of this year is the expansion of our utilities assistance program. We currently offer eHeat for our seniors to help them with their electricity and water bills. But now we're going to roll out a Neighbors Helping Neighbors program where we'll assist residents throughout the city who are facing hardships, any type of financial hardship, which would not allow them to pay their utilities. We have a program that we'll be rolling out the fall of this year. Moving along into our American Rescue Plan project management, the Community Services Department has been tasked with assisting GSG, Government Service Group, with administration of our ARP funding, which we all know we received a $16.2 million allocation in American Rescue funds. I can report that we currently have a total of 19 projects underway, 15 of those being direct ARP funding and 4 being indirect ARP funding, which to date we've expended 70% of those funds, which I think we're in a very good place. We have till December 31st, 2026 to fully expend those funds. So we're moving along pretty well with the American Rescue Project funds. Community engagement, as I mentioned previously, our department, our focus is to educate, elevate, and cultivate. So we all know we have an education initiative within the city, which we have our Education Advisory Board, who they've matured recently, and they've taken on several tasks to help supplement the schools in areas that assistance is needed. So this year we were able to recognize all of our teachers of the year, which was a great recognition for our teachers. We have our end of the year scholarship program. We have our Bryce Gowdy Student Athlete of the Year Award. We have our Principal Roundtable and a host of mentoring programs that we have going on throughout the city to help with our education initiative. We just had a total of 8 interns from our local high schools start interning with the city this past Mondays, which we're very excited about that program. And then we move along into our citywide volunteer and recognition efforts. Last year, we were able to consolidate our volunteer efforts to community services. Once upon a time, volunteer services were siloed within the different departments. It's been very successful consolidating all volunteers through our department, which April of this year, we were able to recognize all of our volunteers for the efforts they've made throughout this past year and the hard work and dedication. We've seen our volunteer program grow over the past couple of months, and we have residents who are constantly seeking opportunities to give back to the community. So we're very excited about our volunteer program. And then when we look at legislative affairs, we'll continue to build capacity at the state and federal level. We had a pretty successful we had a pretty successful year at the state. Throughout the Tallahassee, our visit, we made our rounds and we did pretty well. We had a very nice legislative agenda, which Mark helped us with that, and we're very excited about that. Next slide. Future considerations. So with us moving into the new facility, we want to create some intergenerational opportunities. So we've reached out to Bezos Academy and we've already laid the foundation for creating programming where our seniors can program along with the youth, as well as I've reached out to all of our local principals to bring all the resources that they have available, which we had a drumline come and perform for our seniors. We've had a garden club come talk to the seniors. We're working to have the chorus and band and several activities that the schools have for them to present towards our seniors. So grant trends and inflations, as I mentioned, oftentimes we apply for these grants and by the time we have an agreement in place, the cost for those services have drastically increased. So we'll continue to pursue grants aggressively to leverage the city CIP. Moving along into legislation that's impacting community services, Eric kind of touched on Senate Bill 102, Live Local Act, which we all know this is a historic investment that's been made to attainable housing and incentives for developers, which we have a lot of developers that are already kind of laying the foundation, asking questions about our attainable housing program. So that's something we'll continue to monitor, as well as we're coming up on the end of our CDBG 5-year consolidated plan, which our new plan is due to HUD on August 1st of 24. So we're excited to look at, the possibility of revisiting or reevaluating our attainable housing programs, as well as look at some community development programs that we can bring to the city that we can benefit from. So addressing areas of the city designated as a food desert. So the city of Deerfield Beach, along with 60,000 other census tracts, have been labeled as food deserts. So that designation comes from the United States Department of Agriculture. And what it states is that the city has higher levels of poverty, limited access to a variety of affordable foods, as well as access to vehicles and availability to transportation and walking distances to grocery stores. So to combat some of those trends that we've identified in the city, we're looking to roll out a host of food programs throughout the city the fall of this year. So one of those is through our CDBG CV funds. We're going to roll out a program that's titled The Taste of the Town, which will allow our seniors to come by the senior center and receive a hot meal from one of our local food restaurants weekly, as well as we offer Meals on Wheels now, which if you are 62 and older living in the city of Deerfield Beach, you're more than welcome to stop by the center and receive lunch through Meals on Wheels, as well as we're looking to roll out a food voucher program in the latter part of this year as well, where we can assist our residents with a voucher to help alleviate some of the costs, the food burden. Next slide, please. So now we move into our operating budget, which we had a very slight decrease this year. And I'll explain that in later slides. So when we look at the administration part of the house, we had to transfer fiscal year 23 personnel services to the capital project funds for furniture for the Center for Active Aging. So you'll see a large increase there, as well as I'm requesting a facilities attendant position for the new center. And with the operations at the new center, we're looking to have extended hours as well as additional programming, and we'll have rental space as a part of the center. So it's very imperative to have an attendant on site so that we can help with reconfiguring the room, because oftentimes our rooms will be utilized for several programming, and we'll have programming in the afternoons as well. So the next thing that you'll see here is janitorial services. They have been transferred from environmental services to community services. So that's causing the budget to increase slightly as well. And then our community outreach, when our new center is ready for the ribbon cutting ceremony, we'll have to look at all of our community outreach material that we currently have, because our address will be changing for the new facility. So we must update everything to reflect the new address, as well as our new name that we carry, the Braithwaite Center for Active Aging. Our lobbyist services, has slightly increased from 68,000 to 84,000, which that number has been stagnant since 1998, and they've done a tremendous job. So just wanted to touch on that. Also, as it was mentioned earlier, the department recently had a lot of accounts, so we kind of consolidated a lot of our accounts from health and social services, and we just put it all under admin so that we don't have so many accounts. Next slide, please. So under our grants and housing side of the house, we're adding 2 housing coordinator positions. These positions, the salary will be absorbed 100% through grant funding. These 2 positions will be paid through CDBG as well as SHIP. We're losing a grant writer position. Well, we're not losing a grant writer position. We closed our grants writer position, and this is a neutral change because now we have a grants coordinator, which we felt that the grants coordinator is a better fit for the department and what we're trying to accomplish from a grants world. Next slide, please. So under our health and social services department, again, as I mentioned, we transfer some of our operating expenses to the admin division. And then also our area for agents, the area for agency on aging funding, we have a slight decrease in our LSP and ADI grant, which that's in part to, we've seen that our funding for COVID has been drastically decreasing over the months. So that's why we have a decrease there. So our community development block grant, you'll see that our capital outlay, we've increased our request for fiscal year 24, which community services in conjunction with planning, environmental services, economic development, parks, finance. We've compiled a list of projects that we can potentially visit with our CDBG funding. And as I mentioned previously with our housing, as we notice our trends, we're having a hard time with assisting residents with purchasing homes. So we're going to look to engage in some public facility improvement projects.
These are just the miscellaneous grants that we have within the department for presentation purposes, but they're not the major funding grants or services that we provide.
Next slide. So here we go with our American Rescue Funds. Again, we're looking to roll over 4.7 million, which that's the carry forward. That number can go up or down depending on how things go for the rest of the year. But like, as I mentioned previously, we expended 70% of those funds. Next slide. So here we have our community participation grant, which we received a total of 15 requests. Those requests totaled $265,409. The budget for community participation is $150,000 for fiscal year 24. The city manager's office has assembled a committee to review those applications, and we'll be making a recommendation to commission with the final budget presentation of those recommendations. That
So-
concludes my presentation.
Just to note, the proposed funding here says 125. The evaluation committee met and based off the funding requested that it be looked at $150,000, but that just happened yesterday. So, but that I think I can buy into that funding request of 150,000. This is down from the previous year, which was 185,000. And we did increase that in that year because obviously nonprofits were dealing with reduced funding sources based off the pandemic and COVID, economic climate. So I think it's time to bring that number back down a little bit to where we had it before.
Any questions? Mr. Drosky?
It's not really a question, it's a comment. I'm glad that you put on slide 149, the lobbyist services for 84,000. That's probably overdue, the bang for our buck that we get off of that. I may be looking, as we meander through this process to even increase that. We can't have enough lobbyists, especially with some issues that are coming before the city, in particular Southwest 10th Street. So I think the more the merrier, but we'll get into that as we go through it. But I think that's something we definitely need to look at going forward. Just to alert my colleagues.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that in community services, I have gone over to the center a couple of times, and if you were to do a comparison to what we have there now, the level of participation by our seniors versus what it was a few years ago, there is no comparison. There was a couple people in there, and now it is booming over there. It's growing and growing and growing, and Jonathan and staff is doing an excellent job. But on slide 147, you were talking about the food desert. I just want to let you know that I've been talking to some of people in our community about the community garden. They are very, very big on that. And so there's some discussions that we've had already. And as that develops more, I will bring that information forward. And that would definitely will help in the way we've been identified to help feed our seniors and to help feed people in the city of Deerfield Beach.
Thank you. One thing I want to add on here is the Historical Society has obviously run into some issues with their funding and some of the holdup that from the state, which took away some of the money that we expected to be coming their way. They are in desperate need of funding to help keep the Butler House operational, and really what it needs is a renovation. It needs a serious renovation. Talked to the city manager. The proposals been, and he's reviewed the proposals that have been put forward. Really, in order to make them, to give them the shot in the arm they need for a one-time contribution to be able to keep things going is about $210,000. So I want to have all of you consider that, talk with the city manager a little bit more, but it is something that I support. So I hope we can find a way to pull that funding from our reserves to be able to help do this one-time shot to be able to keep things going over there. So I know there'll be more information coming forward.
Sure, and that would be looked at separate and distinct from the community participation grant process, as an expenditure like that would not qualify for that program.
Sure.
But certainly as, in a different way.
Yeah, excellent. Any other questions for John? Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you, John.
Open to the public.
Oh, I know we're going to open this up to the public, but I just want to kind of give everybody an overview of what this really was, at least for me, from my standpoint. This was kind of the wish list from each department. Gave us a peek on what would be presented to us for the budget. I know the city manager is still going to go through and make his recommendations, and obviously we're going to have our input on what recommendations we want. There's not a lot of detail here tonight, so some of the things as far as our return on investment for a lot of the different projects that have been requested. This is really the first time we've all got to see this, so it's more informative than it is anything else. So that's why there's not a lot of comments. It's not that we don't have input. It's just that we're digesting it right now, at least in my viewpoint. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment? Yes, sir. And Mr. I'm going to need you to, go to the podium. If you can give your name and address to the record, please.
Good evening, everybody. Darrell Adams, 1430 Southwest Fifth Terrace. And on slide 51, I just have one question. I promise I won't keep
That's
you
the Road and
long.
Bridge Fund page. Is there a different one? Which one are you looking for?
For the 5-year capital improvement plan
Okay.
project. And 51, 52, 51. Yes, that's it.
52.
52, I'm sorry. And I see here that you have listed here the Pioneer Grove area. And my question was that you're going to be, this is a 5-year improvement plan to, I guess the Pioneer Grove area is near Pioneer Park area. And my question is, will there be any discussion or any plans on possibly bringing an amphitheater here to Deerfield? We get asked that question a lot. And if it's any talk of bringing an amphitheater here to Deerfield Beach, that'll be a good time, I would think, like if you could like bring an amphitheater here, if you're gonna be improving that area, that'll probably be a good time to maybe look at it if we could bring it here. So that would be my question, I guess.
Thank you. We'll answer your question.
And thank you.
Thank you.
And
Is there anyone else? We'll go ahead and close it to the public then. As far as an amphitheater, I think I haven't heard anybody say anything bad about having an amphitheater until you want to put it in someone's backyard. So the biggest problem is we don't have the property to actually, that I know of, where we could put one in where it would make sense. You would have it of a size in which it would make a difference, in my opinion. Pioneer Park's probably not the spot for it, and I think those residents around there would love the idea if it was somewhere else. But I think most of it is. I think that's our biggest challenge. But as far as I'm concerned, the idea of an amphitheater is a great idea. I just haven't been able to figure out where to put it. It makes sense. Yes. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, looking for adjournment?
If
Yes.
you have your presentations combined for today and tomorrow, you can leave them here. You can take them with you. If you leave them here, we will store them for you. Tomorrow will be the operational departments, and I appreciate the commission's time tonight.
Thank you. I want to thank all the staff members tonight. Thank you. Motion. Meeting adjourned.